Well, it is officially crunch time. Just 2 rounds left to go before we'll be crowning our champion. It's been an incredible season so far, and the final 2 rounds do start with our toughest test of the season. The Circuit d'Azur is going to play host to round number 5 of the Formula Pro Series here on R Factor 2. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Rachel Downey with us on the broadcast, but you will still have to put up with the voices of myself, Lewis McGlade, and John Monroe alongside. And John, this season has been breathtaking so far. We've had 4 different winners. We've got, mathematically, 15 drivers still in the championship. Realistically, it's 6. But it is a breathless challenge at the top.
It is, absolutely. You know, we've got such an exciting season finale coming up soon. Obviously, the penultimate round is tonight, and things could not be tighter. You've got a little bit of a gap out in front for Jone Simoncic for Burst Esports, but then from 2nd down into 6th in the championship, these drivers are only split by 2 or 3 points, and they're not far behind Simoncic. So things are very exciting indeed. And tonight's race, I think the tension is just going to get so high. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the drivers to stay calm and cool in tricky conditions.
Yeah, and whilst we kind of speak of the championship at the top, there is obviously the battle at the bottom. We're looking at the bottom 2 for relegation. 2 teams will be departing the Formula Pro Series, or at least going into a relegation battle. Now, it's a tight fight back there. There are 5 teams all racing around there. A couple of teams that are well out of position in the forms of the likes of Williams Esports and Netrex Grand Prix. Rocket and Wolves are also in that hunt, with Team Fordzilla as well being in that fight at the bottom. We'll be catching up with them a little bit later on. But it is a tight battle, and when you come to a round like this, these are the rounds that can completely change the complexion of that battle as well as at the front. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's actually easier for big swings to happen when it comes to the relegation battle, simply because the points these teams are scoring are lower in general. So if one team can get one big result, they can jump all the way up from last to be ahead of 5 different teams. So yeah, absolutely exciting things at both ends of the table. The relegation battle is an interesting mixture of fast teams that have been inconsistent and slower teams that have managed the consistency. So I think this kind of race could play into the teams that have the pace, maybe not the consistency, but they're still going to have to nail it in the race.
Yeah, indeed. Now, for anyone who's just joining us here for the first time in the Formula Pro Series, we can give you a little bit of an explanation as to how things work here. Formula Pro 2022 Explained, featuring 12 of the very best teams on the R Factor 2 platform battling it out for the championship. 6 rounds across our season as we venture to some of the greatest tracks on the planet as they battle for a $50,000 prize pool. We visit Francorchamps, we visit Monza, we then head to the Daytona road course before going to the brand new Donington Park Grand Prix, then the Circuit d'Azur, and our season finale at Laguna Seca. Relegation at the end of the season will play 2 cars against the Formula Challenge champions. Every round features a mandatory pit stop with the required use of 2 different compounds through the running of the race, and success ballast will be dished out to the top 3 drivers in the championship at the increments of 10, 7 and 4 kilograms. Push to pass is also available in the race for 60 seconds to give a boost of around 55 brake horsepower. Cars will enter Parc Fermé after qualifying, with limited changes being allowed to the setup. Drivers will also start the race on the same compound as their fastest lap in qualifying, and race control will monitor the racing action. And it is a format that does provide some interesting racing. We've now had 10 races in Formula Pro when you account for the first season of 6 races where Bono won all 6. This season, something very, very different though. We've had 4 different winners. Of course, started with Jeffrey Rietveld in that first race at Spa. His teammate Kevin Siggy's won. Last round, of course, we had Marcel Chinchik, one of the recent recruits to the R8G Esports Capital. Of course, Jone Simoncic, our championship leader, all taking victories so far this season.
Yeah, and not many people would have necessarily predicted that, given the dominance we saw from one particular individual, Bono Huis, last season, who still hasn't won a race yet this season. And maybe tonight is the night for that. But yeah, the first half of the season, we saw a lot of circuits that are kind of classic racing circuits with lots of overtaking opportunities, whereas the second half of the season has been more of like driver circuits, which are more suited to hot lapping and maybe difficult to overtake, which kind of just increases the peril as well. We could definitely see a new winner here, though, because this track tonight is unique.
Yeah, it's very much a driver-focused circuit. Round number 5 of the season. We've already been basically a bit of globe-trotting when we started out the season, of course, at Spa. You know, we've raced at some classic circuits, but that's just how it goes. You know, you like a season where you kind of go all over the globe. You like racing at a wide variety of circuits. Of course, we started at Spa, Monza, and Daytona. We had a bit of a mid-season break before we've come back to Donington Park, and then Circuit d'Azur before we go to Laguna Seca. Obviously, that mid-season break's been important for a couple of teams to have a bit of a breather, to refocus themselves on Formula Pro, and now they also do get a bit of a reference as to what the pace is, what to expect. Obviously, Formula Challenge, which now runs on the previous Monday, there is less power in that, but you still get a little bit of an idea as to how things unfold.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the parallels are clear between the two series, and at the start of the season, as you say, Challenge came after Pro, but now we're getting Challenge as a bit of a warm-up, so I'm sure many of the Pro drivers will have been keeping a close eye. And also, just to touch on another point you made about the mid-season break, I think we've seen a slight shift in momentum since that mid-season break, because last time out at Donington, there were some surprises in there, there were some other teams that were pushing up to the front, and the form book changed slightly, in my opinion. I think there was a bit of a moment of change right at that midpoint season, so definitely the break makes a difference.
Yes, indeed. And Donington Park, which kicked off the second half of the season just a couple of weeks ago, it was a thrilling race up in the Midlands of England. Let's take a look at how things unfolded. As we go racing towards Redgate, we're underway at Donington Park. Great launch from Jene Simičić from third, I saw, as he's going to try and attack. Dennis Jordan down into the first corner, straight down the inside, maybe into the side of Marcel Chinchik. Hoyer up in a fourth position as well as they race their way down through the craters. Oh, a big bit of curb there from Michi Hoyer.
However, we did see a lot of overtaking in Formula Challenge. Now, there's two reasons I believe we're seeing less. That's the disconnect.
Hoyer. Yeah, Hoyer with a yeah, he's straight out.
We're going to go on board now with Jajovski, who unfortunately, as we know, has had his issues in this race now. And it was we got a bit close in the middle there. Looks like a Netrex car. Jajovski picking a side, going outside. That is a fantastic, opportunistic move from Jajovski. He's going to have to dispatch him quickly.
It's Nuno Pinto, and he's going to get straight down the inside into the old hairpin. Big move from Bono. He might run a little bit too wide here. Nuno Pinto certainly has done as he rejoins the racetrack.
It'll be a very exciting run down to Old Hairpin as we see Siggy into the pit lane. Oh, he touched the wall a little bit. They're locked up on the way in.
The important thing is where is Jene Simičić? There he is. Wow. And Dennis Jordan jumps the pair of them.
We're now watching Bono, and finally we're seeing some action into Old Hairpin. Bono diving to the outside, trying to get he's trying to get the undercut.
Yeah, super stuff from Bono. He's got to the outside. This is heading up towards Schwansko. He's got the inside for McLean's, but of course Jene Simičić is going to try and stick it around the outside as they race their way up towards Cote. And of course Alex Siebel is going to bite the cherry as well. Alex Siebel in a little bit too deep, and Jene Simičić is coming back third, all the way down to potentially sixth position as the big send from Kevin Siggy comes down the inside, taps. Oh, that might be a little bit naughty. Taps Jene Simičić.
Theoretically last a little longer than softs anyway, so that should be less of a difference. This is it. This is going to be Siggy's chance.
Yeah, he's got to get it to the outside though, because it's been covered off from Jene Simičić. He's in a little bit too deep into the hairpin. The up and under from Kevin Siggy, way too wide from Jene Simičić, and that is the easiest move Siggy will make.
He's going to be flustered, and we're seeing a big late move on Siggy. A bit of, see, that is how you do it. Nice and clean from both of them. Just enough room left. There's a bit of wheel banging on the exit. That is the racing we want to see into Melbourne Hairpin. Simičić now with the overlap on the outside. He's going to go for the cutback. No, he can't quite do it because Siggy parks the bus on the apex. Beautiful defending.
Marcel Chinchik departs the final corner, a driver that's finished third in Formula Pro. He's finished second in Formula Pro, and now he finishes first in Formula Pro. Marcel Chinchik wins here at Donington Park in the brand new colours for R8G Esports. And it was a super drive from Marcel Chinchik, just completely dominant all day, whilst everyone was fighting over second and third behind. It was a brilliant, brilliant drive, and one that's thrown him right back into championship contention. Of course, after that penalty that he had back in at Daytona for the contact with Jarno Opmeer, he is back, he's charging, he's hungry, and R8G, especially with their pace in Formula Challenge, with Risto Caput taking a couple of wins, they're looking very, very strong right now.
They are indeed, and I think that they can really help egg each other on as well. And we saw it with Chinchik. He was quite often up with Simičić early on in the season, and then had that little bit of a lull in Daytona, and the two went separate ways. But suddenly Chinchik's right back in it, and you're about to see the standings. He's not far behind at all. He's still very much in this championship fight, and he's got the momentum. Yeah,
and a new teammate for this round as well in the form of Yuri Toman. We'll talk about that in a couple of moments. But Championship. We've been talking about it a lot. Let's take a look at how things are in the standings as we head our way into the fifth round of the season. Jene Simičić leading, so he'll be carrying that maximum ballast in this round. 116 points, 10 clear of Kevin Siggy. Dennis Jordan in third position with Marcel Chinchik, Bono and Jeffrey Rietveld. Those are the six we're really talking about here. All of them separated by just 13 points with 72 left on the table. Alex Siebel in seventh, Mohamed Patel, David Marocek, the highest placed rookie. In a sense, I know it's a bit of a rough one. David Marocek's plenty experienced in the world of sim racing, but is still there in ninth position. Peter Beliak, got to talk about him as well. That retirement, of course, a technical issue for him in the previous round. As we look down the order, you can see Marko Pejic there in 23rd, jumped in, obviously replacing Jarno Opmeer in the previous round, scoring some decent points in the second driver, of course, within the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports team. A look at the ballast as well. well. We know how it works. The top 3 will all receive success ballast. Jone Simičić on 10, Kevin Siggy on 7, and Dennis Jordan on the 3. Jone Simičić, though, he's getting used to being on 10 kilos. He's had it for the last couple of qualifying sessions. It hasn't really slowed him down too much, as we can take a look at the race circuit we'll be heading round today. Just 3.3 kilometres in length, but that is an extreme challenge. Every single corner providing a unique issue, shall we say, for the drivers across the evening.
Yeah, unique issue. I love that way of describing it. Yeah, every corner's got its own challenges. None of the corners are the kind of corners you see in other circuits as well. They've all got a very much unique character to them. And yeah, we've got a lot of exciting racing ahead. Obviously tricky to overtake, as you can expect from a circuit like Côte d'Azur. But we now jump live and we're seeing the 2 Red Line cars, both in championship contention, chasing down one of the Oracle Red Bulls. And Oracle Red Bull, I've got to say, Lewis, in the last few rounds, they've probably been the most impressive team, in my opinion. I mean, Dennis Jordan's come out of nowhere to be right in the thick of the championship fight, even carrying ballast into this round. And Alex Siebel, he had a bad first round, but he's actually finished in the top 5 in every race since. And if he'd have just had a top 5 point score in the first round, he'd be out right in the championship race too. So it's been fantastic for those guys.
Yeah, you've got to remember as well, they've raced around this circuit just, or some of these drivers rather, a fair contingent of them raced around the circuit just last night in this car in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. So a few of them have a bit extra experience around here, including the likes of Dennis Jordan and Alex Siebel. In that championship, Dennis is trying to help Alex win the title. In this championship, it would make sense if Alex Siebel returns the favour and is like, right, Dennis, let's try and crown you. Of course, Dennis Jordan has finished in the top 3 of GT Pro a couple of times, finishing runner-up to Jan van der Heijden in season 3, if memory serves. I think he was runner-up to Jone Simičić in season 4 as well. An incredible pedigree in that. But looking, as you say, incredibly strong in this 3rd in the championship with a couple of podiums to boot. Jeffrey Rietveld will head his way through Casino Square and then down towards Mirabeau with a bit of kick of oversteer out of the corner there.
Yeah, really on it already. Also 3/10 up on Dennis Jordan, but that has been matched almost to the nearest 1,000th by Kevin Siggy. Just 1,000 between the 2 of them in the first sector. And Team Redline, you'd be surprised, I think, if you'd have told me a few rounds ago that Rietveld would be heading to Côte d'Azur in 6th position in the standings, I probably wouldn't have believed you, or I would have thought something must have gone majorly wrong. But actually, it's just the other teams coming on strong. Rietveld's kind of caught the rough end of the stick in terms of the positions. He's been on the kind of fringes of the top 5, and it's kind of seen him fall backwards. But this is his chance, of course, to return to glory like he'd managed at the first race at Spa with that race win. And Redline have been on it all season, so I definitely wouldn't put it past Jeffrey Rietveld to be right at the front here.
Did look a touch awkward through Tabac there, and also through Larascas. He'll kick it out the final corner though, Anthony Nodes, and punch his way towards the line. The first lap time in the session, you can see there did lose a bit of time in the first sector, but courtesy of a great, in the second sector, great first sector though, and a decent third sector will put him onto provisional pole, 3/10 clear of his teammate Kevin Siggy. David Marocek looking very good in the first sector. Let's ride on board with him through the Tabac and then the swimming pool complex out towards the barrier. That's a little bit too much. That'll cost him a bit of time. You can see they're 2/10 down.
Yeah, just lack that little bit of precision on the exit, and that's what really makes these top guys stand out. They can just nail the apexes and just keep out the barriers right when it's important. But it's still a good lap nonetheless from Marocek. He's lost those 2/10, so we saw exactly where that happened as well. He's going to come across the line 1:11.463 into 4th place, but of course we've only had 4 lap times so far.
Half a second off the 1:10.9 that Jeffrey Rietveld has set. We know how important this qualifying session is, and of course a reminder of some of the things they have to do in Formula Pro. They can't just escape. They can't just pull over and hit the escape key, return their way to pit lane and punch it back out again. They've got to do the full out lap, the full time lap, obviously, and then the full in lap as well. They have to bring it back into pit lane, which does make things a little bit awkward around here. It means you need to make the very most of every single time that timer is running next to your name, as Ibrahim Khan goes up into 2nd and Ferris Stanley comes out of the final corner.
Yeah, looking good in the first sector, not so good in the second sector. We've also seen a fantastic first sector by debutant Yuri Tolman, as well as Ferris Stanley crosses the line 1:11.791, so he's lost a further 3/10 in the last sector, but not a bad lap at all for Ferris. We now look at Laurent Kiersmaker, who came in just in the last round actually and did a really good job, it has to be said, in his Formula Pro debut at Donington. I was really impressed by him, and he now heads out of the Nouvelle Chicane towards Tabac. Let's see how much commitment. Yeah, nicely on the curb, avoids the barrier on the exit. Concentration, as you can see on the face. He's 1.1 down now in the middle sector, so it's not been the best either sector really. I think it's
lane. I think that those sectors will be a solid let's go into the pit lane and roll our way back on, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Got to say, for Netrex, they're in that bottom, the bottom load of the championship, right? They're in looking towards the bottom 2 in the standings. Really, they shouldn't be, though. It was because of a late drive-through. And by a late drive-through, I mean a last lap drive-through. You know a few things about that when it comes to racing around Donington Park. And obviously, because it's so late in the race, you can't serve that drive-through, which means you get it translated into a time penalty. He came into the pit lane to serve the drive-through, but it's still translated to a time penalty anyway. So it was pain on pain. Now, this will be a very interesting lap. Jerne Simicic, our championship leader, coming up Beau Rivage towards Massenet with a little bit of lap traffic from one of the Fordzillas. I think on Gianmarco Fiducci directly ahead of him. But remember that this car is on 10 kilos. The Fordzilla and Michi Hoyer do get out of the way. This is a heavy car. This is the championship leader. He has to wrestle it around. And remember how elated he was up towards the line at Daytona. I think it would be doubly so if he can get this car inside the top 5 on a day like this.
Absolutely, and the Simicic's driving style through there was absolutely incredible to watch. The way he chucked the car into Mirabel, I was thinking, okay, he's really attacking it. He's using the front end and trying to throw the car in. He did the same thing into the Lowe's hairpin, full attack, and that's probably just because this track is so slow. You need to kind of forget about downforce and just optimize everything you're doing. It looks like it's been a good lap so far. A little bit of a freeze there, but we're all good still, and he's right on the pace through the middle sector. If he can nail these last few corners, this is going to be right near the front for Simicic. You can see the concentration. He is fully at work here.
It's a super lap, isn't it? Up towards Anthony Nodes. Jerne Simicic comes out the final corner. Is there a breath of fresh air? Let's see what he does up towards the line. Is it going to be a 1:10? Oh, it's a 1:11.005. Super lap time from Jerne Simicic. At least now, that won't stand for third. I can guarantee that. But still, he's put himself in a decent spot. Here's someone who's going to deny him almost immediately. Another one of those cars that is on a bit of success balance. This one just on 4. Dennis Jordan, after a podium last time out, punched his way towards the line. Only good enough for third, loses out in that final sector, but does make 4 cars within a 1/10 of a second. Got to say, big shout out to Adam Maguire, who improved as Alex Siebel goes up onto pole, a 10.9.00. That is a nice round lap time for a driver who had a pole position around here yesterday.
Yeah, clearly at one with the circuit and carrying this over to Formula Pro. Of course, as you were saying, these times are expected to keep on dropping throughout the session, but what a benchmark to put in from Alex Siebel. That 1:10.9 will guarantee at least a semi-good starting position, possibly even pole. We'll have to wait and see, but he's dethroned Jeffrey Rietveld, who's only 100th behind, almost 200s, and Ibrahim Khan as well, has to be said. Fantastic to be sitting in third position as we now watch Michi Hoyer through the middle sector. He's dropped 4/10. It looks like the kind of 18.5, 18.6 is what you're looking for in the first sector, and then the second sector is where the time really splits. Everyone's fairly consistent at the start of the lap, but there's so much that can be gained and lost, as we see there. Michi Hoyer coming out the last corner. He's really intensely concentrating on this lap. 11.4 for Michi, goes into P10. It's just that middle sector, Lewis. It looked like it would have been a decent lap otherwise.
Yes, indeed. Like I say, just losing a little bit of time there, maybe struggling with the car. Just a touch, obviously no success balanced on Michi Hoyer's car, but he's still trying to assist his teammate, not only in the Drivers' Championship, but also in the team's standings as well. Wilson, I know you were saying that there's a few drivers that haven't set times. At the moment, there are 4. Mohamed Patel, Yuri Toman, and the 2 Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports team, because Marko Pejic has not set a time just yet. Neither has Bono House. I've got to say, with Yuri Toman, of course, he did do last season for Varga Sim Racing, when he was teammates with Marcel Chinchik. RHG got both of those drivers from that squad, and then the other driver from the Varga Sim Racing squad, which was Mikkel Schmiedel, went off to join this team in Team Redline. So there's a bit of a split there. That team is now defunct and sort of absorbed a little bit by these 2 juggernauts of the sim racing scene. Kind of makes sense when you're talking about big drivers. They're always going to go to big teams if they get that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's it's interesting. It's always following the driver market. You do have a proper driver market in sim racing, just like you do in real racing. There's relationships, there's drivers joining their engineers and moving across from one team to another, and there's drama at times as well, it has to be said. So yeah, always exciting. But yeah, Redline, one of the juggernauts, as you say, always towards the front of the field, especially on R-Factor 2. They are one of the teams to beat, and Kevin Siggy will be looking to, let's be honest, improve on P10, because I don't think he'd be happy starting 10th around this circuit.
No, he's not a driver that would expect to be nearly half a second off of the pole time. He'll throw it through the chicane, and he'll try and punch his way up towards the back. The first sector is okay. What's it going to be in the second?
Yeah, just keeping an eye out. Just to make a point as well, Bono has done a fantastic first sector time, 18.593, so he's on it. Kevin Siggy, though, is really on it, and he's through the middle sector. Yeah. So let's see if this can be a pole position. Lap time from Siggy gets a little bit of a wiggle coming out of Raskas. down onto the final straight that's not actually a straight, and across the line. Is it going to be pole position for Kevin Siggy? He does do it, a 1:10.830. That is a fantastic time from Kevin, and it puts him right in the thick of the fight, which is exactly where he needs to be. Let's keep one eye though on Bono Huis, because he has done a great first sector. He's done a really good second sector as well, I think. Is it a slow one?
It's okay. It's about 300ths or so, I think, behind Kevin Siggy. So where is Bono Huis going to go on the time sheet? Up to 4th place. I've got to say for Kevin Siggy, you were saying he doesn't want to qualify in 10th. You're absolutely right, because guess where he qualified last round? 10th, and it didn't go so well there. So you know, obviously he's still up there in a championship fight, but after a pole position at Daytona, a 4th place qualifying at Monza, 7th at Spa, 10th, he's been up and down the grid. He'd very much like a pole position back, but so with this driver, Bono Huis. He's certainly not finding that form that we saw from him where he was, I don't think dominant is even the right word. There's got to be a step above, because that is what he was last season. 6 wins, 4 pole positions, and just on top all the time.
Yeah, and it just seems like so many other drivers have joined that step with him and the pressure's on, but he's still right there in the championship fight, as is this man Jeffrey Rietveld, who is purple in the first sector. Just quickly looking at the top 7, you've got 5 of the main contenders. The one who is struggling at the moment is our recent race winner Marcel Chinchik down in P11. He's not far away, but he's in the pits right now and he's got a bit of work to do. We still have Marco Page in the pits as well, so not sure what's going on there with the second Mercedes driver, but Jeff Rietveld now heading towards the second sector line fairly soon. It was nice and neat through the Nouvelle chicane, as to be said. He's now going to head towards to back. Let's see how committed he is through here. Turns in, gets the curb, is beautifully close to the Armco. That is incredible to watch. Nails it through swimming pool, and what an incredible second sector time, Lewis. That is setting down a marker. Yeah, it
did rub the wall a little bit there through the second part of the swimming pool section, but we won't talk about that too much. Kevin Siggy did brush that wall, remember, out of La Rascasse. This is a mega lap coming in from Jeffrey Rietveld as he heads his way towards the line. It's a 1-2 at the moment in the qualifying session from Team Redline, and an absolute barnstormer from Jeffrey Rietveld. A 1:10.5, 3/10 clear. That is unbelievable.
That is what you call a lap from Jeffrey Rietveld. Phenomenal. I mean, 3/10 is a big margin anywhere, but around this circuit with this competitive field, you see how close everyone else is. There's 3/10 covering second place down to about 10th. It's incredible, and I think that time from Rietveld might be the first that we've seen that really does cement his position on at least the front row. But you know, we know that other drivers can come strong. We know that everyone can improve. Siebel has been on such good form recently. As I say, if he'd had a better first round, Lewis, and he's purple in Sector 1, it's worth noting. If he'd have had a better round 1, he could also be up there with his teammate Dennis Jordan. You can see the aggressive style. I think that's what they're trying. I think they're doing that deliberately. I think they're chucking the car into Lowe's hairpin, carrying as much minimum corner speed as possible, and getting the rotation. Tyre wear doesn't matter. Tyre heat doesn't matter. And I think it's a driving style because they don't have to rely on downforce. They're just chucking the car in and just getting that slip angle.
Yeah, Colin Sport goes up into second position, so that's where he started yesterday, by the way, and it was a very aggressive drive from Colin Sport, of course, driving for the Netrex Grand Prix team here. Alex Siebel, a little bit wide through to back, brushed the wall slightly and lost an awful lot of time in doing so. He's also got one of the Fordzillas directly ahead, who is still in the way. Oh, and Alex Siebel's gone for a bit of a spin. He's lost his front wing as well. Not sure which of the Fordzillas that was. I believe it was Gianmarco Fiducci. Might have actually been Nuno Pinto, not sure myself.
It was Pinto, but I don't want to call that for sure. But
it was Pinto.
It wasn't
for sure.
Great from Pinto, because I don't think he was on a hot lap. Was he? No, he was. He was on a hot lap. So to give him credit, he has the right to finish that lap.
Yes.
But yeah, it got very, very close, didn't it, into the last sector. It looked like, you know, almost lifted off a little bit. Just an unfortunate one. You cannot blame a driver in front if they are on a fast lap. It's down to the driver behind to create that space. But we see his teammate now, Gianmarco Fiducci, who has been stealing the show quite a lot this season. Down in 16th at the moment. He'll be hoping for more, I think, as Fordzilla are one of the teams that really need to step up their game if they want to get out of those relegation places.
Yeah, we will be catching up with their team manager Miguel Jose after this qualifying session to see exactly what's been going on behind the scenes. But this could be, speaking of mega laps, this could be one to watch out for as they'll race his way down towards home. We'll take a look at once again Alex Siebel, and you can see Pinto there. I think he'd already started slowing down because it's not a particularly long run between the swimming pool section and La Rascasse.
I think he was a bit indecisive, Lewis. I think maybe he spotted the car behind and didn't quite know what to do. To be fair as well, Alex Siebel's lap had already gone at that point. He was 5/10 off. Not that he would have necessarily known that, because you don't have much time to look at the splits. But yeah, these guys are very top level. They probably know where they're at. As Bono now comes through, you can see he's done a pretty good first sector.
I've always kind of said this before, like with you know, from driving perspective. I've always said when I'm in a qualifying session, I don't need a delta. I don't like having a delta up, because I've always said that when you're on a good lap, as a driver, you know you're on a good lap. A delta telling you, like, it doesn't really matter. If you're on a good lap, you're on a good lap. You can feel it. Let's see if Bono is on a good lap. Throws it through to back. Didn't take too much of the curve on the left-hand side. And again, loses an awful lot of time. Wasn't super aggressive as well through the Nivelle chicane. I don't think this is the track developing. I just think that they're just not really taking the most out of it at the moment. And so it does seem as though Jeffrey Rietveld is going to be starting this one from pole position. But is there going to be any final improvement from Bono? A little bit in the final sector, but no.
He wasn't happy either. You could see the frustration. I mean, P6 is kind of where he's been all season. He's been around about that 3rd to 6th place. So it kind of sums it up really for Bono. And that's not, by no means, that's not bad. Trust me, that's not bad. It's a good lap from him. But Rietveld's middle sector was super special. We saw it. It was so clean. Very, very nice indeed. And Ibrahim Khan on a good lap. So look at Ibrahim Khan's first sector. That was incredible.
Yeah, almost too good to believe. We'll see what Ibrahim Khan can do across the line. He's currently in 7th position as he'll cross the line. Goes to 3rd, so a super lap time for Ibrahim Khan. We were doubting him. We should never do such a thing. He is a very talented driver, and between himself and Colin Spork, that is quite a young 2nd and 3rd behind the elder statesman, of course, of Jeffrey Rietveld. Final lap coming in from Mohamed Patel as he'll cross the line. He's in 20th and only moves up to 18th, so not taking full advantage as his teammate was, who went up into 3rd. Got to be said as well, Bono in 7th. Mercedes not in the greatest position in the championship. They're down, I think, 6th position in the team standings. Where's his teammate, Marko Pajic, all the way down in 24th place without a time set.
Yeah, he didn't even seem to leave the pits, Lewis, so maybe some technical issues. We're just now seeing Colin Spork, who is a very impressive 2nd place, gets on the power, coming through the last corner, really close to the wall. Fantastic commitment, and that is exactly what NetRex need. Colin, as we talked about earlier, had a nightmare at the end of Donington. This is exactly how you bounce back. That is fantastic to see.
100%, a super lap time from Colin Spork. Like you said, he did well yesterday. They've put in a lot of work into this round, and NetRex Grand Prix are looking very strong here. But they do have one major target ahead, and that is Jeffrey Rietveld, who'll be starting for the 2nd time this season from pole position. The last time he did that, he did take a victory. Colin Spork in 2nd, with Ibrahim Khan in 3rd, Kevin Siggy and Alex Siebel 4th and 5th. Jerne Simoncic, our championship leader, just 6th place on the grid, ahead of our last season's champion of Bono House, Dennis Jordan, one of the championship rivals, down in 8th place. Michi Hoyer and Marcel Cinchik, your Donington winner, outside just in the start of the top 10. Adam Maguire and David Marocek in 11th and 12th position before we find Petr Beliak. Now, he normally works his way forward. I think he'll struggle a little bit today before we see Dan Brewer, of course, jumping in, replacing Liam Deval with the Wolves GR Esports team. And then we see the return of Yuri Toman, but on debut for RHG Esports. Michael Romanidis, who missed the last round of Donington, is back here at the Circuit d'Azur. And then we've got Gianmarco Fiducci, Mohamed Patel, Danny Kish and Damian Skovron in the Bicoles Burst Esports. His teammates are fair way ahead of him, but they do need some points this afternoon to keep themselves safe of relegation. Behind that, just 4 drivers in the form of Nuno Pinto, Ferris Stanley, Laurent Keersmakers, by the way, who's in 23rd. His teammate is on the front row of the grid, and Laurent Keersmakers on the back row of the grid, and then Marko Pajic in last.
Yeah, that was a great session to watch. I'd say the jokers in the pack have to be Colin Spork and Ibrahim Khan. 2nd and 3rd on the grid. Probably not the drivers we would have predicted to be up there, although Spork was showing great pace just the other night. So maybe it's not a surprise, but that is major for the relegation battle in the case of Colin Spork and NetRex, of course. Looking at the contenders as well, Lewis, most of them, I mean, all of them are in the top 10. Most of them are in the top 8. It was Cinchik who probably struggled the most, but they're all there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and like I say, after a qualifying session like that, there are some drivers right now that are really, really relieved. And there are other drivers that are very, very panicked right now. They are getting ready for what is going to be a very, very tough hour of racing. You know, this is a circuit which doesn't let up whilst you don't really deal with the pressures of the car behind the car in front, because it's very hard to pass around here. You deal with the pressures of the track and of the car. Yeah,
it's mentally taxing, and not just because the walls are so close, but because you're probably going to be looking in your mirrors a lot. You've got not so much defending to do, although you do need to keep an eye out, because we have seen some big moves in the likes of Formula Challenge, and we will see some big moves attempted. But you've got to watch out for those walls. It's draining. It's really, really tiring. They're going to be racing around here for an hour, and at these kind of speeds, that's not going to be easy. You can see a lot of the cars were set up very oversteery and aggressive for that qualifying session. I do wonder if that'll be the same for the actual tactical race, if they'll go a little bit safer or whether they'll go that aggressive.
I will say there is what was dubbed yesterday as the Colin Spork special, which was a big dive bomb into La Rascasse. Now, Jeffrey Rietveld, I can guarantee, didn't watch yesterday in this other championship, so we'll have to wait and see whether he's going to be very much aware of that one. Before we though get into the race, we said we were going to catch up with Team Fordzilla and their team manager of Miguel Jose. Let's see, do we have him on the line? Hello, right.
Yeah,
so,
you hear me there?
yes, we can hear you. Fantastic. Now, obviously got a few questions for you, as a team. Now, this season, things haven't been going too much to plan. You're down there towards the bottom end of the championship. Now, the season has still a fair way to go, still a couple more opportunities. But talk to us about the positives that you've had throughout the last couple of seasons you've had in Formula Pro.
Well, I think the positives, as you can see, I have a real car behind, so I approach this championship in simulation as seriously as I approach my actual job in real motorsport. So I think it has been an immense challenge to actually analyze the amount of data and detail of data you can generate in the Formula Pro. I think it's one of the most complex and detailed cars we got in our calendar of racing. And actually you can do so many different changes. You can test so many different things that you will need unlimited time, to get deeply enough to get the best car. So I think it has been a struggle at the same time as an enjoyment to try to make a good car.
Now, tell us a little bit about the team itself. Of course, Fordzilla being an official Ford Esports team. What are the positives of this? What's the team's philosophy?
Well, the team philosophy is that we keep growing. I think that year by year, Fordzilla, I joined Fordzilla almost 1.5 years ago, and we're trying to grow up. So in the process of growing up, of course, sometimes you miss a bit of time, or you would like to take more care of some championships, and that's probably what has happened a bit this year with Formula Pro. We just left it a bit too much, and we're paying those consequences. But I think that have the support of such a brand as Ford gives you the confidence that this is a long-term project, and you can have good days, bad days, but you have the trust and support of a big brand behind, which will give you time to build a good team for the future.
And now, you were saying there, good days, bad days. We know the world of sim racing and motorsport has very, very high highs and very low lows. Is there any positives that you can take in the form of stuff that you've learned from the struggles, maybe from the last couple of seasons of Formula Pro, that are kind of adjusting your approach in future to aid you later on?
Well, to be fair, I think at the end of the day, is you support yourself in your drivers. Sometimes you will see things on the data, you will say, hey, this is clearly better, but your driver say, mate, I can't drive this. So I think that basically get to the point of making your drivers happy and finding limiting factors like, well, that's the furthest we got, and actually be happy even if you're not competitive. I think that's actually the most positive thing. Sometimes you're not going to be as competitive. It's not a good year, or your drivers are not delivering the results they were expecting. But at least you do it with a positive approach. Let's say like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you are very clearly a busy man, riding for a very busy team. So we'll let you get back to it. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you.
There we go, Joe. I always love catching up with some of our team managers. Obviously, we've caught up with the likes of NetRex and Redline and stuff. But, it's always a nice thing just to sort of see what's happening behind the teams, whether they're struggling or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miguel's clearly very busy. He's got very invested in motorsport and involved. But I love the positivity there. He acknowledged the struggles they're having, but he also said, you know what? Sim racing, there's ups and downs. We've got the backing of Ford. They believe in us, and they're going to give us time. Sim racing can be a tough environment, but if you've got the right attitude and you're enjoying it and just going out to actually, as I say, have fun, and the results will come. Fordzilla are a good team. We know they are. They're just having a rough season. So yeah, I think they've got the right attitude, and it was great to hear from him.
Yes, indeed. Now, obviously, they are a team that do race all over the place in the world of sim racing. But, of course, it is time to get ready for 60 minutes of frantic racing. Well, the time is officially here to get ready to go racing around these legendary streets. The Circuit d'Azur playing host of round number 5 of the Formula Pro Series. It's Jeffrey Rietveld, you can see there on pole position with Colin Spork on that front row alongside. This is going to be a dramatic 60 minutes, the penultimate round of the season. There is not long to go, but let's take a look at the grid order. Jeffrey Rietveld and Colin Spork first and second, with Ibrahim Khan and Kevin Siggy in 4th place on the grid. As we move our way down, you'll see Alex Siebel in 5th place, with Jerne Simicic, our championship leader, starting from 6th. Bono will start alongside Dennis Jordan, a driver who has his aspirations on the title, 3rd in the championship at the moment, with Michi Hoyer and your Donington race winner. Marcel Cinčić got a lot of work to do from 10th place. Adam Maguire's had a couple of top 10s this season. He'll start from 11th place, with Davin Marocek, the highest placed rookie in the standings, from 12th. With Peter Berliak after retirement last round due to technical issues, he'll be alongside Daniel Brewer. Yuri Toman making his Season 2 debut alongside Michael Romanidis in 16th position, with Gianmarco Viducci and Mohamed Patel in 17th and 18th. Danny Kish and Damian Skovron, he had a couple of issues yesterday. We'll see if Skovron can account for those and move his way forward on this grid from the back. Nuno Pinto and Ferris Stanley, with Laurent Kiersmakers in 23rd and Marco Pajic. Will very quickly look at our grid as we get ready for the race down towards the first corner, and it is going to be a tricky charge, about 200 metres before we start braking for Saint-Devote, and 1 hour of racing ahead. It's going to be breathless action as the penultimate round of the Formula Pro Series 2022 is about to get underway. Already smoking on the grid, as that was a poor launch from Ibrahim Khan from 3rd. He's going to be attacked by Kevin Siggy, who'll race his way around the outside of the turn 1. A big send from a couple of the burst drivers on the inside at Saint-Devote as we head up Beau Rivage towards Massenet. It was a good launch though from our pole sitter Colin Spork, smoking his way up to Massenet though.
Yeah, one of the shortest runs to turn 1 you will see, and it got very close. I think the 2 burst cars almost came together. Michi Hoyer having to jump out the way to avoid taking out his championship leader teammate. But we've got Colin Spork still 2nd, we've got Ibrahim Khan still 3rd, and of course Red Line 1st and 4th. So fairly steady at the front, almost an incident for burst, but everything seems to be okay so far. We are seeing a yellow flag in sector 2, probable contact through the Lowe's hairpin.
Got to say, there is a smoky car now. It seems to have relieved itself just a little bit. They do have, they can adjust the cooling on these cars. It did seem like it was a fairly long hold. Smokes once again from Ibrahim Khan. Now, we saw this in Formula Challenge with a couple of the Jean Lacey Esports Academy team. They were smoking at the start of the race due to quite a long hold on the grid. They ended up having engine failures late on. Now, that could be a big concern for the BS competition team.
Yeah, absolutely, and it looks like Rietveld is just going away. You've got almost a 2nd lead already from Rietveld. He was amazing in sector 2 in that qualifying lap, Lewis, and doing it again in the race here. Colin Spork just trying to settle in, but yeah, Rietveld is laughing at the situation right now as we now see all the cars shoot past us towards turn 1. But yeah. No, the guys fairly calm at the start, which is good to see, and it's a long race. They've got to settle into it now. I'm very intrigued to see what they do with push to pass as well. Yes. If we're going to see many drivers using it early, or we're going to see them save it. I think we'll see a lot of saving with push to pass. A lot
of saving. I think you've really got to around here. The smoke seems to have stopped from Ibrahim Khan's car. I don't see any other cars smoking their way around the tight, twisty streets at the moment, which is good because race control are quite hot on it. There's a bit of a tactic from some that would, if they are smoking for too much, if their engine doesn't blow by the end of the race, then they will potentially pick up a time penalty if that was the case. It does seem though as though everyone has calmed themselves down as we head through Portiere and into the tunnel. This is Davin Marocek, who's got himself up into 11th place, just past Adam Maguire, dropping back the single position. No major movers. Marcel Cinčić obviously not being able to work his way forward. He is one of the 6 drivers that's in that championship contention.
Yeah, and he's, at the moment, P10, this is not the kind of track where you want to qualify the worst of all the contenders, because it's going to be very difficult to make your way through. There's not really too much you can do in strategy either. Obviously, you can go for an early pit stop and try the undercut on the drivers around you. Track position, of course, absolutely crucial around Circuit d'Azur. But yeah, Cinčić's going to be thinking right now, what can he do to change the situation? Because as it stands, he's going to be finding himself, essentially falling out of contention in this championship with only 1 round to go after tonight. Such a long way to go, though. Yeah,
he comes into it in 5th in the standings, and like you say, the other drivers that he's battling with, Jerne Simicic, Kevin Siggy, Dennis Jordan, Bono, Jeffrey Rietveld, well, all of those are ahead of Marcel Cinčić at the moment. Jerne Simicic, though, just 7th. He's going to be losing a fair few points in the standings heading into the final round of the season. He can ill afford that. He'll definitely want to make a little bit of progress from 7th place, but let's be honest, in the world of sim racing, there are easier drivers to pass, the likes of Bono, the likes of Alex Siebel, Kevin Siggy, Ibrahim Khan, Colin Spork, and then Jeff Rietveld. Colin Spork and Ibrahim Khan, absolutely nothing to lose in this scenario.
Yeah, and you're probably right about the overtaking. It's definitely not going to be easy at all. Spork does have something to lose for me because Netrex are right in that relegation battle, and if he gets the points for second, in my opinion, that basically takes them out of that battle. You know, that's a lot of points to be picking up. 33 points for second position would jump Netrex way up. They're currently 11, so they are in a relegation spot, but they're only 8 points behind Rocket in 8th, who are 3 teams ahead. So 8 points covering all of those teams, 33 points is going to make a big difference. So Spork does have a lot to lose. I think, though, it benefits him to have someone like Ibrahim Khan behind him in 3rd, although Kevin Siggy looking racy on the back of Khan. I think if Siggy's in the mirror, it's going to be a little bit more stressful. Khan is also in that situation where he's not normally right at the lofty heights of P3, although we've seen pace from him this season. So Spork's got that in his locker. I think that helps a little bit.
Yeah, Khan's got 2 10th place finishes so far in the 2022 Formula Pro Series. Of course, did a couple of rounds last season for the Rocket Sports team before he departed that squad and then moved his way over to the Burasids team. But, you know, like I say, doing a fantastic effort around here, looking for his potential first podium. Alex Siebel a little bit on the button there to keep Bono at bay in 5th and 6th. The reason why I was a bit at the moment there with Siggy is that I think he overcooked Sandoval and was quite close to touching the barrier. Now, the thing is around here, whilst you can repair the damage in the pit lane, you really don't want damage. You will hemorrhage time if you bounce off the barriers. You probably won't retire from the race straight away, but you will lose time hand over fist. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, in the really slow corners, you're not so much relying on downforce, essentially, because you're not throwing all that air over the car. But you need as much downforce as possible on the car for the rest of the lap. You know, there's lots of medium and high-speed corners, and downforce is the name of the game at Monaco. That's why always you see teams set up their cars with huge amounts of it. So any little bits of damage are going to cause you big issues. And this track as well punishes mistakes. If you've got a little bit of damage, you're more likely to miss your apex on it. And that circuit does if you miss your apex, there's only one place you're heading.
Yes, indeed. The barriers do greet you very kindly if you overdo any of the corners, and we can see on board with Kevin Siggy. This will be extra frustrating for him because, like I say, the 2 drivers ahead, I mean, whether they can take risks or not, he sat at these 2 being like, you mean nothing to me in this championship. You aren't in this championship fight with me. I need to get through on you straight away because I'd really like to be second, otherwise I'm going to be losing even more points to my teammate.
If you're Siggy right now, though, you've got the championship leader Simoncic in 7th, so you're currently outscoring him by around about 6 points. You're about 10 points behind. So actually, it puts you in quite a good position. Jeff Rietveld, of course, is out in front, and that's going to get lots of points. But then Jeffrey Rietveld, if he picks up enough points to lead the championship, he's going to have the most weight going into Laguna Seca, which is also a reasonably tricky track to overtake.
Yes.
So there's a lot more to it than you think. Ideally, what you want to be here is 4th in the standings, but only 1 point behind the leader. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you, in the perfect world, want to be in this race. So Siggy sitting in 4th position, I don't think he's going to be panicking. He's very committed every time into Sandoval, lobbing that car all the way over the curb. But I don't think 4th's too bad for him right now. As I say, it's all about who's around him, and Spork and Khan they're helping Rietveld a lot, but they're actually doing some of the other drivers a favour as well.
How do you think Simoncic will be feeling right now? Obviously in 7th position at the moment in this race. That would be his lowest finish of the season. But again, when it comes to points being hemorrhaged, I mean, again, there are kind of worse places to be. Although if you are going to take 10 kilos into the next round, you'd like it to be in the highest position or the biggest distance possible to the rest of the contingent. You can see there on the right-hand side of the tower, every single driver running the soft tyres. We are expecting pit stops to be around about 28 to 29 laps in the race, and so it's a fair distance they'll go. We know the overcut's pretty important, but tyre wear, counter to how you'd expect it in real life, tyre wear is an issue around here in the sim.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And if you're struggling around for grip, if you're scrabbling with the traction zones, you're going to be struggling to get the speed out of the corners, and that is going to lead to potential overtaking opportunities later on. And it's also just managing the car, just keeping it on the road. So tyre wear is definitely an issue. Of course, track position takes priority, but the wear is more than another round. So it'll affect things slightly. Be interesting, Lewis, to see if anyone tries something a bit left field with the strategy. We know it's a short pit lane. It's a fast pit lane.
Very fast.
We could see drivers going a bit aggressive for the 2-stop if they've got the pace, but you're going the track position is so crucial around here. You're going to really need to have that pace and have the clean air to make it worthwhile.
I don't feel anyone at the moment. I know this is obviously it's quite easy to quite hard to overtake. No one is jumping out at me at the moment as being a potential two-stopper. I think everyone's looking for that one stop. You would do around here. The only one that's a big question mark is Jeffrey Rietveld. Is he trying to pull away fast enough from Colin Sport to make a pit stop and come out to the lead? We're looking for the delta. Now, I am not joking here because the pit lane is very quick and very, very short. We're looking at the delta to being under 20 seconds, depending on how much fuel you take. But you know, when it comes to the traversal time of pit lane, coming into the box, stopping, changing tyres, putting fuel in and leaving pit lane, we're looking at potentially around sort of 17, 18 seconds for a full stop. Now, that's not very long at all. Rietveld could realistically pull out that kind of margin.
He could. However, you know, looking at the lap times for a start, you know, Bono in 6th up through 5th, 4th, 3rd, you've got 12.9, 12.9, 112.9, 112.9, 112.8 for Spork, and a 112.1 for Rietveld. So a massive difference in time between Rietveld and the others, which would maybe make you think maybe he's going aggressive, maybe he's going for a two-stop. However, with track position being so important at Monaco and qualifying on pole position, yes, it's the right position to make the most of a two-stop because you'll have the clear air, but why would Rietveld take that risk? I don't think he would. I think it would make a lot more sense for him on the pole position to worry about track position and do the one stop like everyone else and play it safe. He's got the pace, he doesn't need to take a massive risk. So I realistically can't see Jeffrey Rietveld going for a two-stop unless he knows something I don't about the difference in overall race time. I just personally think that Rietveld has just got this thing hooked up and is on a charge.
Well, I mean, just again, look at the difference between himself and the rest in qualifying, and if you're holding that kind of advantage mentally going into the race, well, you'll be boosted with confidence and already trying to break the chasing pack. A lot of curb use for David Marocek, who we're on board with, trying to get past Marcel Chinchik and himself inside the top 10 again. The highest placed rookie in the Formula Pro Series of 2022 by Coles-Burst Esports did, of course, Formula Challenge last season. A bit of smoke coming out of David Marocek. Now, again, remember how I said this before in the earlier on in the broadcast, is that those that are smoking around here, now, not only are they risking an engine failure, they are risking the wrath of race control as well, because it's quite distracting. And now he's looking, oh my God, David Marocek, that move was never on, not in a million years, and he drops down to 12th.
It's not an overtaking opportunity.
No, not really that far back.
And yeah, that was inevitable contact. If you're going to go in there that hot, right behind another driver, it's kind of inevitable it's going to end that way. And fair play, it was a fantastic save by, I think it was Chinchik. Yeah, so it's a championship contender as well that Marocek's just crashed into the back of, and he's a lucky boy to still be going. But we could see more issues with stewards. I think he's going to be under a lot of attention at the moment, is Marocek. And
push to pass being used from Adam Maguire as well, directly ahead of David Marocek, and that's why, because he's getting around the outside of Marcel Chinchik. Oh my goodness me! You'd say you can't overtake around the streets of Circuit d'Azur, but they're both proving this wrong. Up towards the back, Marocek around the outside, into the barrier. He's still going though. There's going to be a lot of damage, and he just cuts across the nose of Marcel Chinchik, and they are all in the fence behind. Madness scenes, and look who's come through. Dan Brewer for Wolves GR up to 12th.
It's season over for Chinchik. That is the championship right there. He's won the most recent round. He's come into this race with the form, but he didn't nail qualifying relatively to the others, and now he's paid the price. I mean, side by side.
Pinto. Look at Nuno Pinto. Nuno Pinto getting past Dan Brewer up towards the first corner at Saint-Devote, just ahead of shot, and boom, on the run up towards Saint-Devote. That is very important for Fordzilla, who are down there in the championship, who are risking relegation at the moment. This has been a dramatic round so far. We're not even halfway through the race. We're only 10 minutes done.
Well, it shows you, though. I mean, we saw the contact early on in the lap, which kind of put everyone out of rhythm, and that's what then created the overtake into the chicane, and then it got a bit mental. And it was the same drivers involved in the incident. So 2 bits of contact between Marocek and Chinchik. The stewards have got a lot to look at. Hopefully, you know, we'll be able to see a replay and see what happened there, but that got very exciting very quickly. Fiducci in the pits as well.
Yeah, I think there's been a bit of damage on board with his car, but he'll still jump into the pit lane and see. Here's Peter Berliak, who'll look to the inside. Yes, and what has happened? Was that Marocek again?
I think it was, yeah.
What is happening with Marocek? We definitely need to see that one again on replay. We're stacking up the replays. He's back in the barrier, though. What has happened to David Marocek? I think he's lost his front wing. Peter Berliak is trying to get around him and does manage to make his way past the Polish driver. For Berliak, by the way, I was going to say, just 13th position. He's dropped back a few off the start. There is Marocek crawling his way, limping his way back into pit lane as Laurent Kiersmakers gets around the outside. He'll be able to get in, he'll be able to repair the car and be able to continue on in this race and score some important points. But I think he'll be picking up a few penalties, if I'm honest.
And Skovron down in 21st. It's not exactly what Bacolas need to get out of that battle for relegation. They're not right in the thick of it now, but it's not been a good race for them. Those 2 laps from Marocek could not have been worse. We saw smoke from the car, we saw unnecessary contact, We saw more contact later on, which I would have to see again before making any judgment calls on, and then more contact again the lap after. So complete nightmare couple of laps for David. But you know, these things happen. We're now looking at Petter Burlak. He's got his teammate just a couple of positions behind, Romanidis. Now, Williams is an interesting one as well, Lewis, because Petter Burlak's been picking up the points really well this season, but the second driver's seat has not been consistent. We've not had any points coming in from them, really. We've had lots of issues, we've had lots of driver changes, bad luck as well. So Petter's been the one really bringing in the points, and Williams, you know, it's been a rough season for them, and they are in that mix at the bottom.
But with 13th at the moment, which Bojak's in, you can see his teammate just a couple of positions behind. You've got Boyak, his longer distant teammate, and Mohamed Patel directly behind, and then Michael Romanidis, who's in 15th. He's having a great race, by the way. You know, considering that this is certainly not his cup of tea, but he is doing a great job. Is the Greek driver, and this would be enough to kind of move them at least away from the idea of being in the bottom two in the championship, away of that relegation battle. Meanwhile, Bajkoles Esports seem to be booking their ticket towards that at the moment. Colin Spork under a lot of pressure from Ibrahim Khan. I've said it before, and I will say it again. Keep your eye on these two names over the next few years. Colin Spork and Ibrahim Khan are genuine future superstars, and they could be moving forward. There's a bit of drama from one car directly ahead. That was one going a lap down. I think it might be Marcel Chinchik cutting across in the Vel chicane.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. There's not many places for the back markers to go, really, to get out of the way, but well done. That is how to do it. Not an easy corner, but completely away from the racing line, and manages to avoid the lead group. So fair play to, I think it was Chinchik there. But yeah, Spork and Khan, both very young, both hugely talented, and being able to show their talent on a high stage like Formula Pro, it's great to see. And obviously, you know, Khan we saw very competitive at Daytona as well, it has to be said, but then he slowly dropped back as the racing got a little bit more intense towards the second half of the race and the rain came in. However, around here it's hard to overtake. I think Khan's in a much better position to actually hold on and get that good result. I've also been keeping a close eye on our championship leader Simoncic, because he has been under massive pressure gap-wise from our other championship contender Dennis Jordan in the Oracle Red Bull. They've been only 2 or 3 tenths separated the whole time. Now, if things do finish as they are, we'll take a look at replays first. We'll cover that off in a second. So this is the move. So there was a bit of side-by-side and a bit of contact because going through that chicane's a little bit rough. Marcel Chinchik is on the inside and does push Davin Marocek out towards the barrier, but then Marocek just turns in. There is a wall there. Yeah, I think Chinchik lifted. Marocek didn't leave enough room. Yeah, and, I don't know what Marocek... I get it, because it's a tricky section, but I don't know what Marocek was really thinking, and that was when Gianmarco Fiducci rolled his way through the couple of the Rocket Sinsports cars in there again, and a lovely, absolutely delightful slow-mo. It's very serene until you realise that there is a lot of contact happening here. That, for me, is a... Obviously, you only penalise the incident itself, but for me, that is on Marocek's shoulders. Yeah, quite easily. Absolutely. You know, the first contact was definitely on Chinchik. You know, he didn't leave quite enough room. Yeah, there was contact, and that would have annoyed Marocek. But yeah, he didn't do too much. What we do know from that, we have one of the best esports replay teams there are. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I love it. You know me, I love a good slow-mo. But still, what we were going to talk before we got those delightful bits of video action was about how the championship would look right now if everything was to finish right now. Now, we haven't done a pit stop yet, so we won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but if everything finishes now, Jurnej Simoncic will lose the championship lead. He'll lose it by 1 point, though. That's the critical thing. He only loses it by a single point from Jeffrey Rietveld. So Rietveld would take over the top. Then it would be 1 point back to Jurnej Simoncic, 4 points back to Kevin Siggy, and then 6 points back to Bono Huis. So there's still a little bit to play for. But at the moment, Jeffrey Rietveld could be taking over the lead of the championship, whilst Marcel Chinchik, one of our rivals in that, does pull over and retires from the race. Yeah, so Chinchik, it's fair to say he's out of it now. Done. He is out of the championship. There's too much quality in depth in that top group for Chinchik to be able to come back from that. As you say, though, yeah, Rietveld looking like he could jump from 6th to 1st in the standings, which is great. However, I don't necessarily think it's too bad a situation again for Simoncic, because Simoncic would end up 1 point behind, which is the perfect position. Exactly. Is it worth a point for 3 kilos going into the last race when the gaps are, you know, 3 points, 2 points for each position, and the championship is so competitive? I would argue that I'd rather have a point less and no weight or less weight, because that is going to make a bigger difference. 3 kilos is a that's a position or two, surely. Like I said, if you're going to hold the championship lead, you want to keep that 10-point lead that he's got. Yeah. You want the largest lead possible, obviously. But if there is that success ballast playing into it and stuff, you're heading into the final round. I don't know about you, but if it was the idea of, like you say, you're either going to be 1 point ahead and have 3 extra kilos, or you're going to be 1 point behind and have 3 less kilos, I would be 1 point behind, 100%, every single day of the week, especially going into a circuit like Laguna Seca, which is tricky to pass and weight
does make a large difference. We're on board with Kevin Siggy now, and I don't know if you noticed that, there's quite a bit of lap traffic ahead of them.
Yeah, it's going to get very busy very soon. But yeah, I mean, the weight it's even showing now. You know, Rietveld in front doesn't have any weight. Simoncic in P7 does have weight, and you could argue that is going to make a difference. So yes, totally agree. Either a big lead or a very, very small gap and less weight. But we'll have to wait and see. Simoncic, of course, carried that weight for most of the season. You know, he's been leading the championship for a long time now, since his victory at Monza, I'm pretty sure. And you've seen him kind of struggle towards the end of the race as well, holding the tyres together, maintaining the speed compared to his rivals. So he's been dealing with that. He's very used to it now as well. That's got to be said. But P7 is a pretty good job from him, as we now see Siggy continuing to keep the pressure on Can, who has, it's fair to say, has been keeping the pressure on Spork for the entire race. And that is no mean feat, given how quick we know Spork is around here as they catch the back markers.
Well, Marocek comes back into the pit lane, so he drops down to 23rd and last of our runners. Of course, Marcel Cincic being the only retirement. Everyone else still on circuit at the moment, including that trio of back markers, which is Damien Scovron. They're all going to, or Gianmarco Fidici, I was going to pull over very, very early. Nice back marking there, just not thinking about his battle, thinking about the battle of those coming through. Yuri Toman will be the next one, and then Damien Scovron. Bad day for R8G, of course, that retirement from Marcel Cincic, and then Yuri Toman just here as they'll overtake coming down into to back. He comes to basically a complete stop there on the inside.
And
there is Damien Scovron getting out of the way. Really bad day for R8G, really bad day for Bike versus Esports.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Toman's had a nightmare getting involved in that incident, and yeah, Bike is obviously being a big part of the cause of the incident as well. So not good for those two teams. You've got to say, some great back markering. There's some really good back markering. These guys are pro drivers. They're experienced. They know what it's like. And we're going to see a replay here of Dan Brewer for the Wolves GR Esports team. And yeah. That's such a shame. That
is such a shame, because Nuno Pinto had done such a good job to get himself up inside, or just on the cusp of the top 10, and was battling his way up. It was a super drive from Nuno Pinto, but clearly some form of issue from Nuno Pinto when he drops back into, quite literally, Dan Brewer, who was also putting on a very good drive as well. Yeah,
and we spoke to Fordzilla manager Miguel earlier, and obviously feeling optimistic, positive despite the season. It's going to be hard to stay positive in this race, because they're not having a good one, are they, Fordzilla?
Could have been their opportunity to me, with being up there in the order there. That could have been their opportunity to battle back. Unfortunately, more issues being thrown their way. Whilst Dennis Jordan is on the rear end of Jerne Simoncic, these two are good friends outside of the race car, and they do a fair amount of work together. But we've always kind of said this between the Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports camp and Burst Esports. Whilst they might work together, when they're on track, they're battling, especially when it's for a championship. There is going to be, big mistake from Jerne Simoncic. My goodness, Dennis Jordan nearly clouted the rear end of that. That was a bit of a dramatic moment.
Well, Jordan's been within 2/10 for so long now, and if he'd have been within 2/10 at that very moment, that could have changed the entire complexion of this championship. And there's a lot of prize money at stake for these guys as well. This is a big deal. This is not just pride. This is a career. You know, this is everything for these guys. So yeah, they will be pushing very hard. It's quite lucky that Jordan had that bit of a gap there to Simoncic as he came through the swimming pool, and Simoncic lucky to get away with a mistake, because you don't often get away with a mistake around here. And he continues to defend. He's under pressure. He's under pressure the whole time, of course. And Dennis Jordan does have a little bit of weight, Lewis. He's third in the championship, 4 kilos, which is 6 kilos less, of course, than Simoncic ahead. But yeah, lucky to get away with it. And Hoyer actually could be in a very good position to help his teammate out here.
Yeah, he really could, because obviously Hoyer's closed back in. There's Yuri Toman pulling over to the right-hand side on the exit of Portier as they head through the tunnel. But yeah, Dennis Jordan, I mean, he'll have wanted, like I say, if he was at that perfect distance where he could have got the up and under and then got around the outside through to back of Larascas, that would have been a brave move for sure, and maybe he doesn't need to take that level of risk. But I will say, to use more of a football term, that is a collector's item. Remember that one, because we do not see mistakes from Jerne Simoncic very often. That is definitely one to remember.
I think mistakes are the main way you get past here as well, because it's such a difficult decision between risk and reward. And of course, you're battling against yourself when you're racing around here. You've got to keep out the barriers, and a mistake is what can really help your rivals, rather than you being able to force a move through pure pace. We've seen it happen. We've seen moves attempted through pure pace, and they often, and I think in this race, pretty much every time, have resulted in a big crash somewhere down the line because of it, because of contact. It's so difficult to get it right. But these guys at the front, they're so experienced. If anyone's going to manage it, they are. And as we say, going to keep an eye out, because mistakes are going to be crucial. But Simoncic getting away with it. You can see, look at his driving style there. He locks up the rears and then gets the car rotated. It'll probably be not helping the tyre wear a little bit, but it will just help him carry that speed. We used to sometimes do this when we were racing at Macau in touring cars. We used to actually pull the handbrake through the tight hairpin at Macau, and it looks terrible and it's not very professional maybe, but it got you the lap time because the corner's so tight that you actually get the rotation quicker. It's a bit like rallying, you know, when you come up to a really tight hairpin, very slow speed, you pull the handbrake or press the button on your Logitech to get the handbrake going. And I don't think we're seeing quite that, but it's a similar, yeah, absolutely, and it's a similar thing going on. It doesn't look great, but actually, if that's going to get you that lap time, because it's so slow speed anyway, the rotation is worth more than the smooth grip, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I do remember people telling me stories and stuff. Obviously, this was back before I was racing, when you were racing. Obviously, you're not older than me, but still, you've been in sim racing a bit longer, so there is that. In Clios and stuff, when you're racing those, obviously very front wheel drive, sometimes they can be a little bit hard to turn in, a lot of understeer. So the way you get them through the corner is by locking the rears or using a little bit of handbrake just to get you through the corner. Yes, it is not good for the tyres because your fronts are then doing literally everything, trying to wrestle this car back up for grip. But still, it's quick, and that is the important bit, and that's exactly what we're seeing around here. Ibrahim Khan is quite close. Colin Sporks feeling the need to use a little bit of push to pass in this battle for second, whilst David Marocek skips over the chicane and receives a 10-second post-race time penalty. Now, I'm going to assume that was probably for the first bit of contact and maybe not the second. Or maybe the smoke. There's a bit, I think it's coming through that it's for avoidable contact with Chinchik, so that's probably going to be the first one. Well, yeah, exactly. That's the important. We'll have to wait and see if there's more pain for David Marocek. Yeah, it looks like that was the early one. Yes, that was Massenet. Yeah, we're being told lap 9, turn 3, so that one's up towards Massenet. Now, the thing is, with it being a 10-second post-race time penalty, he won't actually lose anything. That's the important thing. So I don't know if anything will be done post-race to kind of alleviate for that, because obviously if you get a penalty, it's 10-second time penalty, you last. Well, it doesn't mean anything, does it? So whether that will be affecting him next round, that will be the crucial thing. But that's obviously a race control's decision and not ours. We get to sit on the fence and laugh about it and move our way forward. This battle, by the way, is the battle for second. So this is Spork, Khan and Siggy. Those are the three on your screen right now. Behind that, you've got Alex Siebel just keeping up. And, of course, Bono, our series champion of the previous year. Yeah, less aggressive, all of these guys through the hairpin than we've seen from the likes of Simoncic so far. No handbrake being pulled. There's so many things you can use a handbrake for in sim racing. Warming the tyres, you ever done that? Using a bit of handbrake to warm the tyres up? Well, that's a pro move, and people don't like you for it, but it's something that people do. It's the little tricks like that that really make the difference in sim racing. In a qualifying session around Snetterton. You can set your handbrake up, and you can just use it to warm the brakes, warm the tyre. All sorts of tricks that you casual sim racers might not be aware of. This is the length that these people go to find that ultimate performance. I don't know why I keep talking about handbrakes. I really need to focus on the actual race. As Dennis Jordan absolutely lobs it into the slow section of swimming pool there, completely sideways, and it just drives through it like there's nothing wrong at all. Absolutely under control. Beautiful to watch, and he's been a star for me this season, Lewis. You know, you're obviously quite close with Dennis. You have a lot of conversations with him. He gives a lot of fantastic information to help us out in the broadcast. So clearly a very intelligent guy. So quick, and this year I think he has just stood out as being super consistent, and you know, he's driving like a champion. Yeah, he really is. I mean, the thing is, when it comes to a bit of yellow flag out in sector 2, so clearly someone's going to, but it could be some of the lap back markers as well. So we'll keep our eye out with the yellow flags potentially. Oh, there is a car backwards, and that one will be David Marocek, I believe, backwards coming down into the hairpin. It might be Damian Skovron, but it's Marocek. It's Marocek. It is Marocek. Yeah, there we go. There is Marocek backwards down there. So it's an embarrassing race, unfortunately, as Skovron does come through. He'll wait, though, smartly. But yeah, we're back to the thing with Dennis Jordan. When it comes to Dennis Jordan, when it comes to Alex Siebel, when it comes to Jerne Simoncic, I said this before, those three have been teammates in endurance racing for a while. They've learnt from each other. They've got along with each other very, very well. And the thing is, they all kind of race very, very similar. They all race somewhat patiently. They are a bit cutthroat when they need to be, but there is this kind of understanding of the long game, courtesy of that endurance racing background. Now, when you see two drivers from that camp, being these two that we have on our screen right now, Jerne Simoncic leading Dennis Jordan, it's so hard to pass because you know that he's playing the long game whilst you're playing the long game, and there's only 32 minutes left in this race. Yeah, we see it with the likes of Scott Dixon in IndyCar all the time. You know, these guys, they're experienced, they're cool heads, they don't focus necessarily on the outright raw qualifying pace. That's not to say they don't try their best to go as fast as possible, but it's all about, you know, when they're practicing for the race, they're going to be working on race setup more than anything, because at the end of the day, your average lap time is, factually speaking, more important than your outright fastest. The only time that's different is when qualifying is super important and you can block everyone else. But throughout the course of a season, you know, it's the long-term speed that really matters, and these two have been masters of it. And you've seen how consistent they've been. They've managed to avoid mistakes, and the championship standings prove that point. It's worth it. And yeah, it's been great to watch through the season. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
They are struggling for pace a little bit though at the moment. Of course, Jane Simičić with 10 kilos on board is dropping 7.5 seconds over this first stint to Bono, so it's not looking so great for the championship leader. And he does have, again, Dennis Jordan to worry about. This is back up to that battle for second place. They are now 13 seconds behind Jeffrey Rietveld, who, as we can tell, we're about halfway through this race. Definite one-stop strategy, which is just phenomenal how much faster Jeffrey Rietveld has been, looking for his second win, looking to become the first repeat winner here in 2022. It's such a super drive.
Yeah, he's in a league of his own, and this, and you know, worth reiterating, if he continues in the form he's in, wins this race, and everyone else stays where they are, as Marocek, he's just come into the pits again, he's got more smoke, this race is not going well for him, and he's almost lost the back end.
He's still got damage.
Yeah, he's doing a good job at getting some airtime, that's for sure. But yeah, Rietveld, 13.9 seconds clear, will be taking the championship lead by 1 point if things stay as they are. And it's just been textbook from him. And you know, he will be the first repeat winner of the year if he can do it. We're seeing another replay. Is this? This is how he spin. He's going to touch the rear on the wall. Yep, exactly that.
Okay, now this is me being maybe a little bit harsh, but I will say we've had days like this, right? I think that's important to note. You know, me and you have been sim racing for long enough.
Always hit the wall there as well.
Where we've had, he lost his front. Did he lose his front? Yeah, he did. Where we've all had days where it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Now, I know obviously you've got to finish the race to score some points as Kevin Siggy comes into the pit lane before the halfway point of the race. That'll be interesting, whether the undercut will be overpowered. They should go on to another set of softs if they've got this far in the race. But when you've had a race like this, do you not think sometimes it's like, right, it's gone on mediums actually. We'll talk about that in a second. But do you not think sometimes it's sort of like, right, I maybe should throw in the towel just a bit because it's starting to risk other people as well?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because you always have to give credit for drivers that keep on going, because we want to see cars on track. We don't want to see people giving up just because they're having a bad race. So I for one, I'm all for Marocek continuing if he doesn't have permanent damage, but he does seem to have some form of permanent damage. Now, around this circuit specifically, he's got a 30-second post-race penalty. That'll be for the second bit of contact, presumably, possibly even the smoke as well. In a race like this, he's got nothing to gain or lose anymore other than finishing the race and just picking up a few points. Now, it's his right to keep on going if he's not causing danger to other drivers. However, on a track like this that's so narrow and you're carrying around damage, trying to stay out of the way of everyone, you are a risk. Like, there is a risk of an accident happening. So it's borderline for me. I'm not going to hold it against him either way, to be honest.
I will say he's doing a good job at being a backmarker as Colin Spork dives straight into the pit lane ahead of Ibrahim Khan. So he's jumping in as well. We'll catch up with where Kevin Siggy is, of course, on those medium tyres. Yeah, Marocek is doing a good job at least of getting out of the way. But let's focus on the positives and of the race at hand. So with Siggy coming in, the medium tyres are a bit questionable, and that mediums as well for Colin Spork. The yellow walled tyres are mediums, the white walled tyres are softs, and so as he'll race his way down towards Saint-Devote. Interesting, I was told that potentially a soft is really the strategy you want to go, and you don't really want to go soft medium. The medium's not super strong, but it could afford you a nice undercut if you can get them lit up fast enough.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if anyone does that. And I mean, they've clearly lasted okay. You don't have to race so far on the soft, so it's not going to be an issue of tyre wear in the end. I mean, maybe the speed has been dropping off. We're looking at 13.6s for Rietveld, 13.5 for Khan, 13.1 for Siebel. So Siebel's only 2/10 off his fastest lap of the race. So it's clearly not terrible. You can clearly still have decent enough pace, albeit slightly flawed on that end. So it'd be interesting to see. I am not surprised that Colin Spork made that pit stop, because if he hadn't, we might have seen the likes of Khan attempt an undercut, and things can get very interesting. And there is Khan straight in, so he is going to attempt to overcut Colin Spork, who has managed, he's almost preempted that pit stop. He's come in early to make sure he doesn't get caught out by the undercut, and then we're going to have to keep an eye on this, because I think Khan versus Spork out of turn 1 is going to be exciting and very, very close indeed.
I've got to correct myself as well, because I'm living in 2021. Of course, they have to run 2 different contests. I was on a different planet. Don't worry. Well, I'll catch up with 2022 one day. Don't you worry. When it comes to, as I say, the undercut, normally this season we have been speaking of the overcut as being the optimum strategy. The issue being is that around here the tyre wear is much higher than you expect, and you don't really want to try and do so the undercut is more the priority. Problem is when you undercut, you're likely to come out in traffic. Now, that's exactly what you want to avoid. You can see here for Kevin Siggy, who has already jumped Ibrahim Khan, but not Colin Spork.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Khan loses out a little bit there. Siggy was the first to pit, so the undercut working for Siggy to a degree by getting past Khan. That puts him into P3, and that brings him points-wise really close to the likes of Simoncic and Rietveld come the end of this race. It's too early to be talking about that quite at the moment because, of course, we're still in the pit stop cycle, but that does make a difference to Siggy. It puts him just a little bit closer, and he's been a championship contender all season, as we see Nuno Pinto making that pit stop as well. Siebel having a great race still in second. Bono, again, just sitting in that usual position between third and sixth that he has been most of the season so far. Not looking like he's going to take a race win, though.
Yeah, he's not looking... he's just not looking fast enough, to be honest, which I didn't think I'd be saying about Bono coming into the season. I think we were all expecting this to be another year of dominance, potentially.
Khan in the pits. Khan is back in the pits, Lewis.
Oh, did he have... No. I was going to say, did he have a drive-through penalty for speeding? Ibrahim Khan, after a super qualifying, has he hit the wall or something?
Or, well, maybe, or has he taken the same tyres twice? Although if he'd have done that, you would have thought you'd stick with the softs, right?
Well, we'll take a look at the race start then. You can see that slow start from Ibrahim Khan. He was under pressure, you see on that run down towards the first corner from Kevin Siggy, but as they'd all wrestled their way around, it was a nice clean start and a great one, it must be said, from Jeffrey Rietveld. This is on board with Dennis Jordan. You've got Bono there on the right-hand side. Ooh, that is a naughty squeeze from Bono. He was obviously more focused on what was happening with Jane Simoncic rather than the driver that was basically on his outside.
Yeah, tricky one that, because it's, going into the first corner, it's so tight. It's so difficult, and Bono might have had someone on the right-hand side, so, it was a bit of a tight one, but we'd have to see it again from multiple angles to really know how bad. But yeah, Sport getting away well. I was delighted to see how clean they were in that first lap. That was really impressive. We had a close moment between the two burst cars, but they did manage to get through. Looking at Rocket now, who I have to say, they've been the team that have demonstrated they've not had the pace this season. It's got to be said. They're right at the back in terms of qualifying speed, but they've been consistent, and it's actually made the difference in that battle for relegation, because
Absolutely.
Rocket right now are sitting 8th out of 12. So they are sitting in a good position in this race. They've not come into trouble. They've been sitting around about what's Ferris Stanley 17th at the moment, and Daniel Kish up in 11th, although I believe he might still have to pit. However, that is the kind of points they need to survive when they've got other teams like Fordzilla having a bit of a nightmare down at the back. Yeah,
I mean, like their results of the season that's gone, they've not had a single top 10 this season. All of their results have been sort of between 11th and 20th. They've only had one result outside of the top 10, but the important thing is they've finished every race. They've scored points in every race. They've moved forward in every single race, and that is why they're maybe potentially looking fairly safe from relegation, but we'll have to wait and see. Alex Siebel remaining out for another lap. Bono also doing so, but are they coming into the pit lane this time by Alex Siebel? Says, no, thank you very much. I am going for the overcutters. Ibrahim Khan is right on the rear end of one of the net wrecks. I was getting a bit confused then as to which one it was. That one will obviously be... Is that Lauren Kears?
It is, yeah. He's P13. He's had a good run through the field because, of course, he started right down in the back row.
Has he pitted yet?
I'm not entirely sure. I think he might have done, because he was... Well, he's on let's just say
though.
He's around about the position he was in at the start of the race. He might still have to pit. Or sorry, not the start of the race, about 10 minutes ago.
I think he's yet to pit.
Yeah.
Is Lauren Kears makers, because that move was a little bit too easy. Oh, Ibrahim Khan! Oh my goodness me!
Well done.
That was a bit of a moment. I'm going to try and catch up to see what has actually happened with the BS competition team as to why he's come into the pit lane twice, and there's Lauren Kears makers into the pit lane.
Yeah, real shame for Khan. Real shame. I was just talking earlier about how this time he did look like he was going to be able to hang on to that top 5, maybe even a top 3 in the race, and something's gone wrong. It's very hard to tell. Normally you'd expect maybe a drive-through or something, but we saw that wasn't the case. David Marocek, by the way, has retired from the race, and we're now possibly seeing why, and the engine is gone. So it's been a disaster on every front for David Marocek. He'll maybe be relieved that the engine actually let go there with us.
Maybe. I think he might also be expecting some potential grid penalties then for the next round, which with a 10-second time penalty, 30-place grid penalty, I think he's pretty much guaranteed to start, if that does turn into a grid penalty, last at Laguna Seca, which would not be great for the Bicoles Burst Esports team, but at least for their sister squad in the Burst Esports teams, things are looking a little bit better. This is Colin Spork on the rear end of Michi Hoyer for 6th position, and the battle there continues at the moment, under a lot of pressure at the moment.
Yeah, and if you've just joined us, Alex Siebel out in front, still to pit. Bono second, still to pit. Rietveld is your essential leader in 3rd position. He has pitted. He was dominating the race earlier, so he's almost in the lead, despite the 2 in front of him still need to pit. That's how dominant it's been from Rietveld. Simoncic P4, still to pit. Michi Hoyer, still to pit, and almost being put in the wall there from Colin Spark, who has pitted and is the equivalent of second position with Kevin Siggy right behind.
Exactly, he's got to worry about Siggy behind. I will say these two essentially came into blows. They had a lot of racing yesterday, and there was a little bit of fisticuffs during the race between these two and with Dennis Jordan as well. Colin Spork is very aggressive and it's going to remove down the inside of the Nivelle chicane. It's a big send, but Colin Spork has been able to make it stick. He tried that a few times yesterday, but after some moves in the braking zone wasn't able to do it on Michi Hoyer. But that attempt did work on first try today, and importantly, Kevin Siggy does not get through. Now, is the opportunity going to be open coming down into La Rascasse? Because Michi Hoyer is under a lot of pressure here. He leaves the door a little bit open. He hooks it up through the penultimate corner and up towards the last one. And Michi Hoyer is hanging on to 7th, but is there going to be a move down into Saint-Devox?
Siggy with a big step out of oversteer. I don't think he's close enough. And the thing was, Spork didn't need to make that move because Michi was going to pit at some point soon. However, it still helps him that he made it successfully now because he's got that gap to Siggy. So it did work out for him. Big risk to take, Lewis, when you've got so much at stake for Netrex in the championship. That he just needs a solid finish in this race points-wise. That was a big, bold move. Credit where credit's due. He pulled it off. He managed to do it cleanly. He got the car turned into the chicane. Michi left him the space, so it was good defending as well. But it was a bold decision to go for it.
Got to say, by the way, it did get an update from Felix van Delft running strategy for BS competition. An update as to what happened to Ibrahim Khan. Love the guy, but very silly mistake. Sped in pit lane, got a stop and go penalty for doing so. Again, the cool kids would classify that as a very solid F. And so, yeah, he's not ideal after what could have been a very good day for the BS competition team. Thankfully, when it comes to things in the standings, they are 5th in the championship at the moment, which means that they should be safe from relegation. I don't think they're going to be heading down that far. But still, could have been an even better day.
Yeah, it's been such a good season for Ibra in terms of speed and in terms of, showing his potential. It's not been the best season in terms of the results, but, he is maturing as a driver, and this is an example of, this is the old Ibra. This is the kind of thing that might have happened. And to be fair, the pit lane speed limit has been changed. There's a few things about that where the speed limit is slightly different in the race. However, the speed limit is actually higher in the race, so you would think it would be less likely to speed.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. Bit of a tricky one.
In practice and qualifying and in warm-up, I think actually no more would actually go up to the race speed, but in that it's 60 kilometres an hour, whereas in the race it is 80. 80 kilometres an hour, which is why it's so fast in the pit lane this round. And yeah, Ibrahim Khan clearly overcooking it. Seeing if Kevin Siggy might overcook on the rear end of Michi Hoyer, it's allowed Colin Spork to gap quite considerably already. Only already a couple of seconds down the road. You can see the Netrex Grand Prix driver has cleared off. This is the part of the circuit where Colin Spork managed to make the move. Kevin Siggy's not close enough to attempt anything at the moment, and Michi Hoyer is just able to hang on. This will be very frustrating for the Slovenian behind.
Yeah, and Alex Siebel from the lead pits as we see a replay now of Spork. This was the move on Michi Hoyer. He didn't need to make it, but he went for it. He'd managed it cleanly, and credit where credit's due to both of them. Spork made the corner, didn't cut across the chicane, and Michi left him the room. It's great racing, I have to say. It's great racing.
Does move in the braking zone though, which does really irritate me.
It was a little bit of a move. There was just enough for him to get through, but it was close.
Was that Pejic out of the race? Was that Marco Pejic?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Marco Pejic then is out of the race as Alex Siebel comes into the pit lane. So again, further dramas for the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports team as their last season couldn't have been more perfect. This season, not looking so ideal. Marco Pejic retires here, obviously his second race back in the Formula Pro Series, and big drama indeed. So after the pit stop there from Alex Siebel, he's got a bit of lap traffic in one of the Rocket Sim Sports cars, and then a hefty margin up to his teammate of Dennis Jordan, and of course Jenny Simičić, who are yet to stop. Yeah,
we did see a brief yellow flag there as well, so worth keeping an eye out if there's anyone moving slowly, but Petr Burlak into the pits too. Bono Huis then leading the race by 4 seconds. We're going to see a replay actually first. So this is Pejic, and this will be why he's retired. So he's coming now towards the last bit. Is that an engine failure? Yeah, it looks like it.
It's not. Yeah, but it's not smoking. Oh no, it's smoking. Never mind. Yeah. I'll cancel that opinion. Ooh. Oh my God, mate, please escape. If it's gone, it's gone.
That was our championship leader there coming through as well. And yeah, just to kind of a quick update for everyone. Rietveld at the moment is in the driving seat. He looks like he might jump from 6th to 1st in the standings once the pit stops actually happen. And Siggy there in 8th position is also looking good. He's second in the standings at the moment. He's on for a good result. Now that he's got past Ibrahim Khan, he's looking potentially at 3rd place. So he's going to be right in the mix as well. Dennis Jordan will be a little further back because he's not having quite the race he needs to have, being kind of stuck behind championship leader Simičić, whose previous points haul keeps him right in the mix as well. Marcel Chinchik, on the other hand, DNF early on. It's been a nightmare for him and he is out of contention. Bono, the final person in the jigsaw. Yes, he's leading this race. You can see him right now, but it's not been the best race for him in terms of he hasn't pitted yet. So he's still going to be dropping back. And I think this is going to leave the championship with 3 standout main contenders heading into the last round.
Yeah, and you can see all of them switching over onto those medium tyres at the moment, and so we're still awaiting a few pit stops. You can really tell there, Patel, Hoyer, Jordan, Simoncic and Bono all yet to enter pit lane, and here comes our series champion into the pit lane. He'll bring it onto the jacks, he'll go onto the medium tyres with 17 minutes left to go in the race, and Jeffrey Rietveld will take over the race lead. Will Jone Simoncic and Dennis Jordan come into the pit lane? Also, Dennis Jordan does. Jone Simoncic stays out, uses a bit of push to pass away. He's got a bit of lap traffic ahead in one of the Rocket Sim Sports cars. Can confirm as well that team manager of Rocket Sim Sports, Ed Trevelyan Johnson, is watching us from Central Park, which is not a bad place to be watching a Formula Pro round, of course, but as a team manager, you've always got to keep an eye on what's happening with your squad.
I just can't believe he went to Central Park knowing there was a Formula Pro race on, but he might actually have to miss it. That's,
You're saying he should have flown back to the UK?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Can't believe he chose to have a holiday when this is on. But, at least he's watching.
Yeah, it's acceptable. Obviously, our team manager as well, we can't say anything too bad about him.
Well.
Kind of. Jeffrey Rietveld, though, back to the lead of the race. Things looking very, very strong, and potential for this driver to take over the championship lead heading into that final round of the season. Could be a very important move. If Kevin Siggy times it right, though, if he manages to get his way past Mitchy Hoy, which he's not been able to do so far, but if he was able to make a little bit of progress, he might have jumped Jone Simoncic and made it a 1-2 for Team Red Line. I don't think that's going to happen. He needs second in this race to make that so, as Jone Simoncic comes down towards Larascas and comes down towards the pit lane. Yeah,
Bono, great job to come out ahead of Colin Spork as well. That is fantastic for his race.
Job.
Yeah, and Siebel as well. So there's been a big change around, has to be said. There's been some big moves. Ooh. And Simoncic in the pits. Everything looking okay?
They wouldn't have taken more fuel. That's the thing, because they've gone so much further in the race. They obviously have refueling in this, and so that late pit stop could have saved them a little bit more fuel. Here's Jone Simoncic then. Dennis Jordan jumps him. Now this could be bad in the championship for Jone Simoncic, because now it would be 2 points behind Jeffrey Rietveld. Will keep on board with Jone Simoncic and see if he can charge his way past the driver that he's just lost a position to.
You saw the reaction on his face there. He was gutted when he came out of the pits there to be behind Dennis Jordan, because he's been trying to hold him back the whole race. The undercut working for Dennis and the shorter pit stop not making a difference for Simoncic. I think this is right, based on the speed they've had, the fact that Dennis has been right on his back the whole race. This is probably the positions they should be in. But this is what it is with the weight for Simoncic, the extra weight he's been carrying throughout the season. It's so hard for him to maintain those high-end positions in the races, and he's finally looking like he's going to lose his championship lead here as we stay on board with him for a full lap heading into the Swimming Pool chicane. Not Swimming Pool chicane, sorry, the Nouvelle chicane.
The Nouvelle chicane, aye. Don't get me wrong, I've been making corner mistakes all day, don't you worry. Jone Simoncic, though, out towards the barrier. I think you're absolutely right. I think the pace advantage really was in the form of Dennis Jordan. Obviously, slight difference in success ballast. This car with 10 kilos, that car with 4, way too deep into the Larascas. Mitchy Hoyer's into the pit lane, so they will gain at least 1 position back. Obviously, the one they've really dropped was obviously to Ibrahim Khan, who dropped down the order. There is Mitchy Hoyer in the pit lane. I think it's a bit of a long stop as we jump back to him. He's going to drop back to 8th position. Probably will stay out ahead of Adam Maguire, though.
You've got to say as well, Ibrahim Khan in the top 10, only a second behind Maguire, and he's clearly got good pace. That is, considering that he's had a stop-and-go penalty for speeding in the pits, that's a great place, to be able to say I came 10th at Cote d'Azur, in the top 10 despite this issue in Formula Pro. Nothing to be sniffed at. Obviously, it would be better to be able to say I finished in the top 5, but credit where credit's due. He's not given up, and he's still sitting in a decent position to score some points for the BS competition team. Yeah,
and that's it. Points are everything in a championship like this. So it's very, very critical for them to basically get on with this and try and hang on. But I say it is what it is. Again, now that things have sort of shuffled back out, the championship lead again would go the way of Jeffrey Rietveld, and because Jone Simoncic, whilst he's dropped the position of Dennis Jordan, he's gained it on Ibrahim Khan, it would be back to being 1 point. So, pretty important a move. It does mean actually Bono, by the way, with the 3rd place at the moment, whether he gets past Siebel or not, he'll actually be moving up back into the success ballast positions, because he'll be moving back up in the 3rd in the championship.
I was just saying before, he's been a bit quiet, and he's never looked like winning one of these races. He's always been just off the pace and kind of holding on and picking up the points. At the end of the day, you're right. He's nailed the strategy here. He's gained a lot from that, and he's still looking at 3rd place points. I mean, at the moment, he's actually ahead of Rietveld in the championship heading into this race, so he will obviously lose 6 points relative to Rietveld if he does finish in 3rd. But that means he's only 5 points behind. So he's still fully a contender in this championship. He could conceivably win the championship without winning a race. It's still absolutely possible.
Very much on, like I say, just 5 points behind. If things finish as they're presently running, just 5 points behind the championship leader, and heading into that final round of the season, really, as things would stand, we came into this round thinking it was going to be six for the championship. Obviously with Master, we were expecting to eliminate one today, right? For various reasons, for whatever reason.
Always.
There's always going to be a bit of drama. We obviously eliminate Marcel Cicic. He is off that list. In fact, mathematically, he can just win it. But that's only if everyone retires, and he would only beat Jeffrey Rietveld by a single point if he won. I.e., it's not on. But we do actually have 6 contenders for the championship, because with Alex Siebel's position, he moves his way up to 6th in the standings, and he'd only be 17 points back from Jeffrey Rietveld with 36 on the table. Yeah,
so very much, 6 people, in the fight still. Siebel was the one who you can say, even if he wins both of the races, he's still very unlikely to win it because of how many people are also in the fight. It means it's likely that one of those contenders is going to also finish top 3, right? But Siebel's done everything he can, and it's what this is really helping is the Oracle Red Bull situation in the team standings, because Oracle Red Bull are currently sitting 2nd place, 194 points. They're fairly comfortably ahead of Burst, who are not looking like scoring too many points here, 7th and 8th for Simončić and Hoyer. Redline are 209 points, so Redline are currently 15 points ahead now. It has been a great race for Redline, but Siebel being in P2 keeps the dream alive, potentially, for Oracle Red Bull. It keeps them in the fight. So, he's doing everything he can, and obviously, he would love to be able to still be in a chance of finishing top 5 in the drivers as well.
Well, one team that is trying to really escape the battle for elimination, for relegation, is Williams Esports. They're down there. They're not in that position, but they're close. They're 10th in the standings when it comes to their position at the moment. Now, this day is looking like it's one which is going to run them away from it. With 11th and 13th at the moment, Belyak in 11th place. You've got to worry about Mohamed Patel. Like I said, long friends, these two. And then Michael Romanidis in 13th position. Not an amazing result for Williams Esports, must be said, but still, it would be enough. That's the critical thing.
You say that. You say it is close, and you say that. But if you look around, Fordzilla, they're really going to struggle now. I think they're already last. They needed a big result. They're not going to get it. However, Williams in P10. They've got Netrex behind them. Colin Spark is up in P4, so loads of points for Netrex. Wolves in front of them. Adam Maguire up in P9. Potentially still outscoring Williams. Then it's Team Rocket. You've got Daniel Kish in 14th, Ferris Stanley in 16th. Both drivers, none of them right at the back. I don't think Williams are really safe. This might lift them out of the positions for the moment, or at least keep them above their head above water, so to speak. I don't think they're out of trouble completely. I think this is maybe going to bring Baikolas back into this potentially. There's a lot of big points going on there, Lewis, for some of those teams. Yeah, and with such a bad day for Baikolas Burst Esports, they could potentially, like you say, be moving their way back down into relegation for a team that obviously, Marocek being champion of Formula Challenge, to work their way up into the series. It has been, I think, what can only be described as a suboptimal day for the squad, and we'll have to wait and see how things are going to unfold for them. But this is the battle for second. Alex Siebel at the moment ahead of Bono, Huis, and the lap times at the moment, obviously these two were running quite a lot faster than Jeffrey Rietveld over the previous lap. I don't think it matters though, because that is a nearly 9-second lead, or closing on a 9.5-second lead that Jeffrey Rietveld has over these two. It really is these two for second and no one else. Yeah, Rietveld's been managing this race perfectly from the front. He doesn't need to have the pace. Looking at the best lap times, Rietveld is almost half a second clear. Dennis Jordan, second best lap, 12.47. Rietveld, 12.16. So he's more than 3/10 quicker than anyone else's fastest lap. Domination from Jeffrey Rietveld, and the perfect moment in the championship to find this kind of form, especially since he won the first race and has kind of had a bit of a lull since then. So, Rietveld's out in front. He's managing this. Siebel and Huis now in the battle for P2. I don't know if Bono's going to be able to make a move, because Siebel has clearly got good pace. They're both running very similar lap times, both in terms of their current pace and their best outright laps. So who knows what's going to happen with those two. But Jeff's been in a class of his own and fully deserves this victory if he can hang on and avoid any mistakes, which is still not easy. It's worth remembering that as well. Got to say though, there is one stat that would be a bit of a concern for Jeffrey Rietveld, which is he seems to do well every other race. He's had a first, then a 13th, then a second, then a 7th, then a first,
what does that mean for our season finale? Obviously, championship success ballast. He seems to be one of those drivers that's actually struggled with success ballast more than others. That's why a lot of the inconsistency and result has come in there. And they did have a few penalties back in Monza. Point being, though, is that he does seem to have a good round, a bad round, a good round, a bad round, a good round. That would then lead it to being a bad round. He needs 2 good rounds back to back, as does everyone, to win this championship. It is not a fight which is going to be easy. It is one that leaves us very intrigued heading into that final round of the season, though, and I hope all of you will be joining us for it as well.
Yeah, and you know, Rietveld looks at the moment like he's going to have full ballast as well, so he's going to have full 10 kilos. That's not the position you want to be in, but at the end of the day, you know, that is the way the championship works. That's the way weight battles work, and that shows how close it's been throughout the season. To be going into the last round wanting to maybe be 3rd or 4th in the championship is just credit to the organisation of this series and just how competitive these top teams are, because it's exactly what the fans want. We want to see battling all the way to the end, and there's nothing artificial about this. There's no showdown, there's no point split or anything like that. This is just pure racing, no drop scores. They are just that close.
Yeah, it's incredibly tight. And one thing as well with the success ballast, we're not talking about majors, we're not going up to 70 kilos of success ballast where you cannot win a race. It's 10, 7 and 4, and we've already seen some great results coming in from those with success ballast. You're not out of the question of doing something very, very special. I mean, Jone Simic got a podium the first time he was on 10 kilos, thus proving that you can make something stick when you're on that level of weight. Kevin Siggy in 5th position at the moment as we look at that battle. We'll go back, though, to 11th place. The battle continuing between Peter Belyak and Mohamed Patel. They were very close coming down into the hairpin. They're very close leaving Portier, but Patel's not going to be close enough down to the Nivelle chicane. But they're looking pretty feisty, it must be said.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the very few overtaking opportunities on this circuit, and he wasn't quite close enough that time, but he has been hammering the back of that Williams for a long time. Burlak, a seasoned veteran, though. He knows exactly what to do. He knows where to position the car, and he can cope with this. You know, he's not fighting for an outright championship. He's sitting P11. I think these two will be enjoying this one at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if Burlak's able to keep his cool and hold on to that P11, which could prove to be important for Williams. It really could. The points, they need those points.
But here's the thing, is it's kind of like, I think they're at the position where, and Belyak will know this, like, you know, this is from the experience of winning world championships, of winning countless races, open wheels, touring cars, whatever it is, he's driven it and won it. Mohamed Patel, if he goes for anything at any point, like a big, like I'm talking a big bold dive like down to Saint-Devote, if you are, if you're in that position, if I'm Peter Belyak, I turn out of it. I let them go, because I'm just kind of like, look, I need 12th more than I need 11th, right? In a sense of I need good points, and if I risk it to try and stay 11th, we could both be out of this race and I could be scoring nothing. And if that happens, then yeah, we're looking at the relegation race. That's the critical thing. You've got to be weighing that up all the time.
Yeah, and Patel's got nothing to lose. Nothing to gain, nothing to lose. He's out there having fun, going to be going for the moves, because he's not in that relegation battle at all. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. It'll be down to Patel whether he wants to make that move as Dennis Jordan gets so close to his team redline rival, and it's fair to say this is the championship at the line here. Dennis Jordan not really having the greatest day, it has to be said, in the grand scheme of things. He needed to be up in that top 3. Siggy down in 5th, obviously. You know, he's been right in the back of him for a few laps now. This is the team standings, though, as well.
Yes. Because
these are the top 2 in the championship there. Redline leading it, Oracle Red Bull 2nd, and they run 1, 2, and 5, 6. So if Jordan, I mean, Jordan's got nothing to lose at this stage, I believe. I think he's going to have to go for it. If he gets an opportunity, why not? Yeah,
it's going to come down to a bit of push-to-pass usage and that kind of section, how much they have left, and maybe a bold move from Dennis Jordan. You can see there, Kevin Siggy's not looking super comfortable at the moment. Looked great in qualifying, not so much in the race. He's under an awful lot of pressure from, at least on the team's championship side of things, one of his rivals, and potentially on the driver's side as well. That was a bit of a mess, though, from Dennis Jordan through the 2nd chicane in the swimming pool section. And he's under a lot of pressure, is Kevin Siggy right now. I kind of get the feeling, like I said, this is going to be a pretty bold dive from Dennis Jordan. And don't let the Red Bull logos confuse you, by the way. Yes, the Team Redline does have Red Bull logos on the side. That is because it's Max Verstappen Red Bull, the Oracle Red Bull Racing team that are rolling on board with right now, 2 completely separate teams. Whilst they do have the backing from the same camp, they are nothing to do with each other in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, these two, they are fully concentrating on their own fight right now. This is not a collaboration. This is, you know, they share a sponsor, and that's pretty much it.
Yes.
And, you know, Dennis will be doing everything in his power to get past Siggy, but we've seen how good Siggy's been this season. There really isn't, you know, Siggy's been outright fastest at many occasions. He knows how to position his car. He drives in so many different series as well, Lewis. He's gained so much experience of leading from the front. He's going to be such a tough man to pass, even if you've got that pace advantage. It's going to be so tricky. If Dennis pulls this off, it's going to be a sight to see. Yeah,
looking for his 4th top 5 of the season from 5 races is Kevin Seca. The only driver with that accolade also is Alex Siebel, actually, as that was a little touch of the barrier there from Dennis Jordan, in a little bit too deep into Larascas. And the more they are close, the struggles from Kevin Seca as they do manage to lap Yuri Toman once again, they are dropping back towards Jerne Simoncic as well, who will pounce on any opportunity as we head into the final couple of minutes left in this race, which means, depending on where Jeffrey Rietveld is, we are potentially on the penultimate lap here, the Circuit d'Azur.
Yeah, 1 minute and 10 seconds or so for a good lap. Obviously in the race we're looking at 112s, 113s. Bono's right in the back of Alex Siebel still as well, so you've got 2 situations of close cars fighting in the top 6. Simoncic, I just don't think he's got the pace. You know, obviously he could pick up if Siggy and Jordan come together, but he just does not have the outright speed that the others have, so he's probably just going to have to settle for 7th. I don't think there's any other way about it. Using push to pass, we've not seen anything really come from push to pass. I mean, I've not spotted it anyway. We've seen lots of drivers on and off it. They might as well use it because there's no downside to using it, but it's just not making enough of a difference at a track like this, because it's all about traction out of corners rather than that kind of high speed end of a straight situation.
Is that a plug? Oh dear.
Oh, I didn't even notice it myself.
Just
I was wondering what you were pointing at.
A cheeky traction plug, fair enough.
With an
Each
X.
their own. We're on the final lap of this race. Jeffrey Rietveld is very much in control. Alex Siebel is hanging on to 2nd place right now. Is there anything that Bono can do?
No, I don't think so. Well, there is, but it's down to Siebel. Bono needs to be as close as possible. If Siebel makes that little mistake, he can pounce, but there's nothing in his control he can do if Siebel keeps his head. Super
close gap between Jordan and Siggy. Once again, there might have been an opportunity for Dennis Jordan to find his way through. They're coming down into Mirabeau now, so if they don't get it done there, really there's only one major opportunity for Dennis Jordan to maybe find a way through. That would be coming down into the Nivelle chicane. They'll head through Portiere and into the tunnel one final time. And is this going to be the opportunity for Dennis Jordan? I'm going to have to say potentially not. He's obviously heavy on the button as he's trying to charge his way through, but we'll focus our attention back to the dominant force of the day. We'll be catching up with Jeffrey Rietveld as he comes through Anthony Nodes, and there is going to be no new winner here today. Jeffrey Rietveld becomes the first repeat winner of 2022. Jeffrey Rietveld is on top once again, and he snatches the championship lead with it. Alex Siebel will come across the line in 2nd place, and Bono will round out the podium. Super form from the 2 of them after jumping through the pit lane sequence, and a great drive from Colin Spork, it must be said. But who is coming across the line in 5th? It is still going to be Kevin Siggy, just ahead of Jordan and Jerne Simoncic. Utter dominance from Jeffrey Rietveld, one of the drives of the season. Alex Siebel continuing the form. That's another top 5, this time 2nd place for him. What could have been in the championship if he'd have nailed round 1. And Bono just refuses to leave. He's just never been right at the top pace-wise, but he continues to pick up the points. It's another podium for him, and he's right in the championship mix as well. Colin Spork not in the championship mix, but Netrex needed that result. Colin deserved more points at Donington last time. He's got the points today, and you have to say a fantastic job from him. And then Siggy in 5th is still in the, still in the fight. And a great drive from his teammate Laurent Kiersmakers. Remember, this is the car that started 23rd on the road. Oh my goodness me! That nearly gets right over the rear end of Danny Kish. That I don't believe in the commentator's curse. You know how I feel about that. That was just it's not so great driving, but a great drive throughout the race from Laurent Kiersmakers, coming up 1 position short of the Rocket Sports car of Danny Kish, who also had a great run through the race. But for Kiersmakers, for Netrex Grand Prix, those results, 4th and 15th, could be very, very important. This driver, Bono, well, he has to look forward to potentially going back onto some success ballast as we'll head into the season finale. By our points, Jeffrey Rietveld will have 139 points ahead of Simoncic's 138. Bono will move up into 3rd in the standings, just 5 points behind. Can he snatch that championship in 2 weeks' time? Of course he can. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. We've seen different winners all year until this point as well, so we know that new drivers can come along and win. Bono's obviously got the experience, he's got the pace, he's just not
not had that little edge. So if he works really hard, maybe unlocks something in the setup that just gives him that extra couple of tenths. He might need a little bit of help from his teammate Marco Page as well. But he's definitely in the mix, absolutely.
Well, no ifs and buts, but Fordzilla with a race like that, they'll be looking to potentially think, what could have been again? Either way, we'll take a look at the race results. Jeffrey Rietveld on top once again in the Formula Pro Series. He takes the win ahead of Alex Siebel and Bono. A completely dominant performance from Rietveld. Colin Spork and Kevin Siggy in 4th and 5th in that tight race across the line, with Siggy just coming out atop of Dennis Jordan. Jene Simoncic came into the round as the championship leader. It looks like he'll be relinquishing that one this afternoon, just ahead of his teammate in Michi Hoyer. Adam Maguire, another top 10, his 3rd one of the season. Super drive again for the Wolves GR Esports man. And then Ibrahim Khan was running up in the podium battle, drops down, but still finishes the race and still inside the top 10. A super performance from the BS competition man, just ahead of his teammate in Mohammed Patel, who was trying to attack and find a way past Petronas for a long part of that, the final couple of laps there. Michael Romanidis in 13th position before we get to Danny Kish and Laurent Kiersmakers, who are quite close across the line. Decent results once again from Rocket Simsports, 14th and 16th. Daniel Brewer, after that issue a bit earlier on, could have been up maybe inside the top 10 if he hadn't had that issue with Nuno Pinto. He'll be down in 17th before we get to the 2 Team Fordzilla cars. Then a few retirements from the race. Pajic, Marotchek and Marcel Chinchik. It was a dramatic day. We lose one of our championship rivals in the form of Marcel Chinchik. That's just how it goes. That is what it's like street racing around the tight and twisty streets here at the Circuit d'Azur. Great race though, and unbelievable dominance from Jeffrey Rietveld.
It was a great race. Let's start with that. I mean, it's a tricky track. You know how easy it is to make mistakes. We only saw 1 or 2 major incidents all happening kind of at once in the same place with the same drivers. But generally speaking, to only have 3 retirements from that race, very impressive indeed. And we saw some fantastic moves, some fantastic defending as well. So all in all, a great performance. Lots of drama at both ends of the championship as well. You said it, Jeffrey Rietveld, incredible, dominant performance. Probably the performance of the season for me. He was just, from start to finish, no one could get close to him, both in terms of pace and in terms of calmness, and it's brought him right back to the front of the field. And then at the back of the field, you've also got, Williams having their 2nd driver finally picking up points. You've got Netrex picking up 4th with Colin Spork. So, yeah, big moves in both sides of the championship.
Well, hopefully, we do have a line with Jeffrey Rietveld for the 2nd time this season. Jeffrey, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I am unfortunately quite loud, but we'll ignore that for now. What a super drive it was. 60 minutes of total dominance. Try and explain to us how that happens and what it kind of feels like to lead such a prestigious race by that level.
Yeah, it's all about qualifying in Monaco. I mean, everyone gets that, I think. And I've been lacking a bit of qualifying pace, I must say, last couple of races. So I'm really happy to grab the pole, with over 2 tenths. And then, just make sure you have a good start and the right strategy in terms of how much fuel you're going to carry for the first stint, and just, stay hyper-focused. It's not easy. I think it's 32.5 degrees in my room. I don't have an AC. So it was quite tense, but I mean, it keeps you concentrated as well at the same time. So not too bad.
Yeah. The heat wave that's sweeping across Europe, of course, it does make things quite difficult for some of the drivers. What's it like driving in those kind of conditions? I'm sure a little bit of sweat dripping down the forehead, trying to keep focused on a circuit which requires laser precision.
Yeah, it's super hard, to be fair. I mean, Monaco is very unforgiving, right? So one small mistake and your suspension is gone and your race is over. So yeah, it wasn't ideal, the timing with the heat wave in Europe, but I mean, at the same time, it puts me into like a next level, like concentration mode, right? I just, I don't know. I was just in my element, I think, today.
Now, let's talk championship. Now, again, never trust a commentator's math, but by our calculations, you could potentially be leading the championship. It does mean, though, that the crucial side of it would be about success ballast heading into Laguna Seca. Is this something which was on your mind throughout the race, or were you just focusing at 1 lap at a time? What are your concerns with that?
No, not really. I mean, we try to maximize points, right? And the weight penalty surely won't help me in Laguna. But by our calculations, Kevin should not have a penalty. So if all goes well and we just get a decent result, I hope we can grab the championship, But a lot can happen. One single DNF and it's over, So it will be tough.
And one final question then. When it comes to the championships, when it comes to drivers, to teams, obviously you're in contention for both. But where's the focus? Is it more on the drivers, or is it more on the team side of things, where prize money is?
might sound weird, but I really don't care about the Drivers' Championship. I mean, it's a team championship. It's a team effort. Kevin and me work extremely hard together with our engineers to give our maximum performance. And the team championship is where the prize money is at, and Driver Championship. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice, but main focus is team championship for sure.
Well, we'll let you head off and celebrate for the second time this season. Another race win to add to your collection. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you, guys.
And again, super calm in the commentary booth, super calm on the racetrack. What a perfect drive.
Yeah, it was insane. And, you know, he was talking about the heat in his room, 32 degrees. We've had it 36, 37 outside, but we've got air conditioning in here. And
it's lovely now.
Jeffrey looks like he's done less work than we have, which is incredible. You know, he's absolutely, you know, nailed that. And as he said, it actually helped him focus, which I thought was interesting. Another very interesting point that he made about the team's championship, and I kind of noticed that he said was talking a bit about Kevin not having the weight as well, so clearly his mind is fully focused on the team standings, which isn't something you hear very often, but I guess with the prize money at stake and representing a team like Redline, it's super important to those guys. Yeah,
it's one of those things that's impressive to note that normally when we hear that kind of speak, it's like, oh, I don't really care about the Drivers' Championship. Of course, there is always a little bit of care, but normally we'd be like, oh, that's rubbish. He absolutely does. I buy it. I absolutely buy it. I don't think that there is much concern over the drivers. They're more concerned about what is happening on that team side. This is a team sport. When we're talking of those that get relegated, it's from the team's side of things, and that's the important bit. Now, we can see on our screen the championship standings at the moment. Obviously, very, very provisional right now. Jeffrey Rietveld on 139 points. Jone Simicic is in 6th, but I don't think his points have been calculated. That he should be on 138 points and just a single point behind Jeffrey Rietveld. Then Bono, Kevin Siggy, Dennis Jordan and Alex Siebel. The top 6 in the standings. There we go. The top 6 in the standings. The top 6 that will be racing for the crown heading into the final round of the season. Marcel Cinčić with that retirement down to 7th in the standings, with Colin Spork, you can see there at the bottom, moving up to 11th after that super drive. What one effort it was, and like I say, moving right up to potentially even grabbing himself a top 10 in the standing. We'll see some of the other ones come through. You can pick up on a couple from here, the likes of Ibrahim Khan, of course. David Marocek there was the highest placed rookie, losing out an awful lot of points with a solid goose egg to his name. Erhan Jajovski's not with us today. He's been replaced by Yuri Toma, which I do believe will last until the final round of the season. Laurent Kiersmakers, though, after just 2 races, moves ahead of Noah Roivers. That's not me trying to make a dig at Noah Roivers. Of course, Roivers jumping out of the season to focus on his studies and such, but plenty of big names even down this end of the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Liam de Vatel, another man who is no longer racing in the championship, but it's very tight down the bottom. Look at the team standings here. You've got Team Fordzilla down in 12th. They're almost down and out. We need a Fiduci special at Laguna Seca to hold that together. Williams Esports in P11, not managing to get themselves out of the mire just yet because Rocket Sim Sport are sitting in 10th. You've got Wolves GR in 9th with a great result from Maguire, and then of course Netrex, Colin Spork doing them a very solid favour, jumping up to 8th place in the team standings. By Collins Burst Esport almost being dragged back into the fight, but they might just be safe.
Yes, indeed, a super tight championship at the moment. But, you know, if you like what you're seeing here on R Factor 2, there's plenty more content coming up. And one of our colleagues in Paul Jeffrey's been talking over some of the upcoming content.
The July 2022 release candidate for R Factor 2 is available now. Changes of this scale will alter the way the cars and tracks behave in the simulation, so let's take a look at some key highlights from this new build. Real Road 2.0. In this new feature, track temperatures can be affected by a number of variables, such as time of day, cloud cover, ambient temperatures, geographical location of the circuit, and the circulation of other cars warming the tarmac. Track temperatures will initialise at the beginning of a session based on the weather conditions set by the player and will dynamically change over the course of track running. The track limit system. For this release candidate build, we have completely reworked the way track limit infringements are calculated within the system, with the aim to make a fairer and more robust system for all users. With this new build, we have developed functionality that allows our users to set 3 types of track limit settings: none, default and strict. These settings can be applied to both single player and also on a multiplayer server. anti-lock brakes and traction control. Another sizable development that will come on stream as part of this release candidate build is the introduction of a major revision to our ABS and traction control simulation. For the July RC build, we have substantially reworked these two important electronic features of modern race cars, significantly expanding the behavioural characteristics in line with their real-world counterparts and adding a wealth of feature enrichment functionality. These new features form the main highlights of the July 2022 release candidate build of R-Factor 2. Other improvements to the core simulation experience have been brought forward into this build ahead of the main public release, so make sure to check out the Studio 397 website for full details of the latest changes and improvements ahead of the full release, scheduled for early August.
Well, there were a lot of big words in there, but I think the most important thing is it does look like things are getting better and better here on R-Factor 2. And just the competition, it just shows, again, as content comes out, as quality of life improvements, we had loads over in the Q2 content drop as well. It's getting better and better, and there's no better time to sort of jump onto the competition system, maybe even book your place in that season finale, of course, of Formula Challenge in a week's time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, R-Factor 2 has been around for quite a while now, but it's great to see so many new things coming to the service. Obviously more content, we're getting more and more of that, but also all of these little subtle changes, the UI updates, the sounds, obviously things like that as well, that do make a big difference. So it's great to see a fantastic platform, and we've seen it obviously on the big stage today, used for Formula Pro and Formula Challenge, and the racing has been sensational. Yeah,
let's take a look at some of the racing that we've had today then around the streets of the Circuit d'Azur. Roll our way back, and it was Jeffrey Rietveld on pole position with Colin Spork alongside. That race down towards the first corner at Saint-Devote, a bit of a squeeze as Dennis Jordan was trying to get around the outside of Bono House. A lot of smoke as they'd rise their way up Saint-Devote, all through though that first complex of corners, racing their way up towards Massenet for the first time. Rietveld with a comfortable lead. He was being charged down by Colin Spork. A bit of a mistake from David Marocek into the rear end of Marcel Cinčić, out towards the barrier, and Adam Maguire tried sneaking his way past, but that was before this moment. Through to back, a little bit of a squeeze in towards the barrier, and then a squeeze back towards that one, and a massive multi-car pile-up. Marocek would miraculously get away for it for the most part, but everyone else behind less so. He'd be under a lot of pressure from one of the Fordzillas and would be squeezed into the barrier. He'd lose his front wing and return to the pit lane eventually with a lot of damage, retiring from the race. Bit of a moment for Jurnej Simoncic. He was under pressure from his good friend in Dennis Jordan before Nuno Pinto would have a large moment and out towards the barrier before he'd lose one of the positions to one of the Wolves GR Esports. Just a little bit of a brush of the barrier, a few of them having that. Ibrahim Khan, post pit stop, was fully on the attack. He'd get past Laurent Kiersmakers, obviously had to return to pit lane after a stop-and-go penalty for speeding, but still marching his way back up towards the top 10. A absolutely sensational send from Colin Spork down the inside of Michi Hoyer. Kevin Siggy was not able to find his way past. A superb lunge from the Netrex Grand Prix driver before we saw this battle between Mohamed Patel and Petr Belyak. Up towards Massenet they'd go, side by side, time and time again. And was there an opportunity for Patel to get through? He'd get all the way around the outside at Massenet, but as they headed to Casino Square, it was Belyak holding the advantage though over everyone else. Jeffrey Rietveld in a completely different league. He would take a superb victory around the streets of the Circuit d'Azur, his second victory of the season. Is there any stopping this man?
Yes, I think so. I think the weight could obviously have an impact. There's too many other big names right at the top of the standings that could have an impact. So yes, there is stopping Jeffrey Rietveld, but he couldn't have done any more today, and he's going to be feeling confident heading into the next round, although we've seen in the past that winning one race doesn't guarantee your result for the next.
Indeed. And of course, the next round being our season finale. John, I'm going to ask you now. Now, obviously, the championship standings that we've had were very, very provisional. But you know what I'm going to ask. I'm already building up to it. I'm giving you a little bit of time to think. Who's winning this championship?
You give me a lot of time to think, but I think that the weight is going to have an impact on Rietveld. You know, I'm actually going to go with Kevin Siggy. I think that Siggy was my man earlier in the season, and he had a bit of bad luck as things went. He kind of recovered it, and I thought after Daytona that was going to be it. I thought Siggy was going to have this, but it's been so good from Simoncic in terms of consistency. I just don't necessarily think Simoncic recently has had the outright pace. So for me, I'm going to put my money on Siggy.
I'm going to go a little bit more boring, actually. I am going to go Jene Simoncic. I think he is going to have the form when it comes into that season finale. Before we get there, though, again, remember, in a week's time, we'll be back for Formula Challenge. But then in 2 weeks, we'll be ready for that fantastic season finale. Just one more round to go before we say goodbye to Formula Pro in 2022. We'll see you then.